We could have owned the house. I didn't even know.
Sure could have. Besides though, it makes no sense to like, you know.
It was, I'm just like, damn. You know, what could have, would have, should have been.
Yeah.
It wasn't meant for us in that time.
That's a whole fact. That is a whole fact. Everything happens when it's supposed to happen.
I think 98 cent this week using Cash App one first.
Yeah.
I just took my weight up down to 336.9.
Okay. I have to come to the mic again. All right. I love you too. You too.
Planet, scientists are well underway in creating a black hole right here on Earth. I mean, okay, not the scary, like, universe-gobbling type, but, like, one that lets us peek into the secrets of space. As it turns out, making one in a lab is a huge goal for scientists, aiming to unlock mysteries about gravity and the teeny-tiny world of quantum mechanics. And this opens up all kinds of possibilities as we attempt to learn more about extra dimensions. Now, picture a universe having more dimensions beyond the 3 of space and the 1 of time that we're used to. And in these extra dimensions, which would be imperceivable to our 3D monkey brains, gravity would be way stronger. So if we could create a black hole in a lab, it could open a portal to these other dimensions. Now, don't get too worried about the black hole, you know, sucking everything up, because it wouldn't really do that. Even if we could create a teeny black hole, it would disappear in like a flash, not able to sustain itself with its own mass. But the real mind-bending thing is that if we could make a proper black hole in a lab, it might help us crack the code on these hidden dimensions. At number 4 is the mirror dimension. If you thought the last entry was crazy, just wait to hear about this. Imagine if we could open a door to a parallel universe, one where everything is similar but also kind of different. Now, allow me to explain. The Oak Ridge National Laboratory wants to shoot a bunch of tiny particles through a 50-foot tunnel, pass them by a big magnet, and then slam them against the wall. Sounds pretty simple, right? But if everything goes right, some of those particles might turn into mirror image versions of themselves and zap through that wall. And if that happens, it could be the first clue of a whole nother universe hanging out right next to ours. Now, this mirror world isn't like what you'd expect from the movies. There's no alternate versions of you or evil twins, but it could have its own physics, its own rocks and planets that are totally different from what we know. And the experiments at this university might be able to find it. At number 3 is Hoag's object. I think I pronounced that right. Imagine stumbling upon a galaxy that looks like a cosmic donut in the vastness of space. Meet Hoag's object, a weird eye-shaped galaxy that's unlike anything astronomers have ever seen before in our entire universe. Picture this, it's essentially a bright yellow, older core surrounded by a ring of shiny young blue stars, but in between them, nothingness. Discovered in 1950 by astronomer Arthur Hoag, this galaxy left scientists scratching their heads. One theory suggests that maybe billions of years ago a smaller galaxy zoomed through the larger one, shaping this odd structure. But there are no signs.
The night country takes us one by one.
Of nearby galaxies that could have caused this, and the core spins way too slowly for such a collision,
Damn, I just
adding
got
to the
better than
galactic
thinking
mystery.
fucking
If you
myself.
peek closely, hidden within Hoag's object, there's a smaller galaxy that takes the same eye-looking ring shape as its larger counterpart, right there where 1 o'clock would be if the galaxy were a giant cosmic clock. Yeah, you heard me right, a galaxy within another galaxy. Galaxy Inception. How did this cosmic oddity came to be? Who knows? Maybe parallel universes or something. And number 2, an asteroid from another system. Imagine you're this telescope-wielding astronomer dude scanning the skies in Hawaii, and suddenly you see this weird long thing zipping through space. That's Oumuamua, a name that's as bizarre as the thing itself. It's shaped like a giant space cucumber just cruising by. I mean, it's massive, probably a kilometer long, but crazy skinny given its length, only about 170 meters wide. And it's not from our neck of the cosmic woods. No, it's racing way too fast to be a part of our solar system's gang. Scientists think it rolled in during the Victoria era, but only God knows where it hung out before that. What's even stranger is that its sheer speed is a wonky trajectory, as it definitely doesn't behave by something that's bound to the sun's gravitational pull. This motion might be described if the object were a comet, as ice melts as it's approaching the sun, propelling the comet like a jet does a plane. But if that were the case, the flying giant space cucumber would have a visible tail as it leaves behind a trail of vapor pushing the object off course, but that just isn't the case. Cue the alien theories! Maybe it's a UFO with a solar sail getting pushed around by the sun's rays. But we can get even crazier. Some suggest that it might be from a whole other universe. I mean, think about it. Oumuamua's trajectory isn't just wonky because of the sun's gravity. It's almost as if there's something else tugging on it. Maybe it's from a place where the rules of space are totally different. At number 1 is the Anita experiment, the scientific discovery that proves the existence of parallel universes. The claim begins with a hook that would tingle the spidey senses of any sci-fi enthusiast. Imagine a remote research station in Antarctica where scientists diligently hunt for cosmic rays. Now that's intriguing enough on its own, but it gets even better. You see, since they were looking for cosmic rays, they had their instruments oriented towards the sky. That is, until researchers suddenly detected not 1, but 2 signals shooting out of the ground beneath them, defying all logic. Because, you see, these rays of neutrinos are supposed to come from supernova, so it's super improbable that the rays are passing through the entire mass of the Earth without coming into contact with a single particle of matter, only to land on a tiny weather balloon in the sky. Literally impossible. To make sense of all this, scientists delved into over 40 papers offering a buffet of explanations. Dark matter, elusive particles called sterile neutrinos, and then, the grandest of them all, parallel universe. Essentially, a mirror image of ours, but where time runs backwards. Imagine that. This audacious idea isn't pulled out of thin air either. It's rooted in actual science, a theorem which hints that alongside our universe, an antimatter universe stretches backwards through time before the Big Bang. But, okay, let's just tap the brakes, because a more down-to-earth theory has also surfaced. That's right, hold your antimatter horses, because it turns out it's more likely that these signals were simply reflected off of ice or skipped off subglacial lakes. The truth, it seems, is more grounded, reflecting high-energy particles, not parallel dimensions. Sorry, y'all. I mean, unless you want to go ahead and put away Occam's razor, then definitely take the Dexter dimensions. As always, if there's a cursed object that came to Earth from a parallel universe that you think I've missed, feel free to let me know down in the comments. And speaking of comments, here are some of my favorites from the last video. The first is from, oh god, okay, Mayanan Billiones Lyongson 6921. Oh boy. Who says, I had the same experience with my Alexa as I was going through videos of the Illuminati, and initially my Alexa device wasn't active. Then, after a few minutes, it started blinking with the green light, almost like it was listening. I noticed and found it creepy, and then I stopped playing the videos about the Illuminati, and then it stopped blinking. Very freaky. Yeah, the only thing freakier is that username, bro. For the love of God. Please change it. The next comment is from Gen Z727, whose username I can actually pronounce. Thanks, buddy. Says, I'd be pretty scared if my Alexa told me she was going to unalive me and then started laughing. Yeah, if that ever happened to me, I would definitely be unplugging Alexa and asking Siri to find me some therapy. Thanks for watching, y'all. This has been AJ with Most Amazing, and I'll catch you all in another video. Peace.
There you go.
Stop StopAwesome.org is ran by Awesome Lighthouse for the Blind. It has a wide variety of products.
That was until one day he received a phone call from someone claiming to be part of the UFO community. Again, didn't know that was a thing. He asked if he could visit Dr. Hopkins to discuss the case. Hopkins agreed, and he was greeted by an intimidating man wearing a black suit and black tie. Apparently, this guy was extremely pale with no hair or eyebrows. As soon as the man entered Hopkins' home, his dog went berserk, started barking at him. The man then basically interrogated Hopkins to see how much he knew. Before leaving, though, he told Hopkins that there were 2 coins in his pocket, Hopkins' pocket. He then told him to reach into one of his pockets and retrieve it. He did it, and then he said to hold the coin in his hand and look at it closely. Within a few seconds, the coin started to go in and out of focus before disappearing completely from his hand. He then said that the coin would never be seen on this plane again. It gets weirder. The man then asked him if he was familiar with a man named Barney Hill. Barney Hill was a man that said he was abducted by a UFO. He died from cerebral hemorrhage. When Hopkins said yes, he knew of him, the man said, "Barney didn't have a heart, just like you no longer have a coin." Basically implying that he's got the power to kill him. And honestly, he probably killed Barney. Hopkins was then told to get rid of every file he had on the UFO case. And he did as he was told. He burned every shred of evidence. Watch, now the Men in Black are gonna come after me and Shay for this video. Just saying.
Again, coming to the #1 spot, we have a message from the future. Now, who knows if this is true? It's fun to believe stories like the one I'm about to tell you because it makes life a little bit more interesting. But a story I snagged online spoke of someone who started to receive messages on their phone. They were from an unknown number, but they had details about things that seemed to be random. The messages would be like, a man in a plaid shirt will buy a coffee with 2 creams and 2 sugars next to you and forget his wallet. Like, okay, but what does that mean? But then these events started happening. It was like these texts were coming from the future. So we started to respond to them, but the person would never communicate outside of these messages that were hints from the future. But why was this coming to our random writer? Well, we never found out because one day a black van pulled up next to him and 4 men in black suits jumped out and told him that he was under arrest. They put him in the van and then took him to a police station. They searched him, took his phone, he was detained for a few hours and then released, and was given everything except for his phone. They said it got lost and they would send it to him when they found it, but he never got his phone back, and from there, the messages just stopped.
Starting off this list in our #10 spot, we have a Mexico circus demon. This demon story takes place in Mexico in 1942 and is a son recounting his father's story from when he was 20 years old. The father and his younger brother went to check out the circus that had just arrived in town. They were most excited to see freak shows, but after checking them out for a while, there wasn't really anything that was piquing their interest. They met a couple girls and they were about to go check out some music when a man wearing a dinner jacket came up and started talking to them. He said he was the greatest illusionist in the world and that he could show them a trick both scary and amazing. He also said that he wasn't actually part of the circus and that he had auditioned, but they said his act was so frightening they couldn't allow him in the circus. The father and his brother were both very intrigued now and asked to see the trick, and the man said he could only show them if they came to his trailer, which wasn't too far away. In 2021, we know that you never go to a stranger's trailer, but they all followed the man in this story. Once at the trailer, the man begins his trick. He holds up his right hand and then puts a white glove on it. He then waves his left hand around his right, wiggling his right fingers and chanting some words that the guys didn't understand. He then asks if they're ready. The guys reply yes, and the man pulls the white glove off of his hand, revealing his hand as only a skeleton. The man even went as far as to grab the father's head with his skeleton hand to prove it was real. The boys, of course, got out of there as quickly as possible. In our #9 spot today, we have the Demon on the Veranda story. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying the video so far, because it really helps us out. This story takes place in a small village in India when the story storyteller was 16 years old and living in a boarding school. All the girls slept in a big hall, and one night, one of the other girls, named Malty, woke her up around 1 a.m. as Malty wasn't feeling too well. She goes to get some water and went outside on the veranda with Malty to try and help her feel better, as she was feeling very nauseous. She looked to the right and saw the far end of the veranda, and there was only one light, and the rest of the light was all coming from the moon. After a while of comforting Malty, she looked up to the right again and saw a kind of cat-like figure, but after a closer look, this cat had the head of a human and was bald with big eyes. She tried to convince herself that her eyes were deceiving her, but it began getting closer and she could see it more clearly. She was frozen with fear, and by the time this creature was around 10 meters away from her, it let out a meow sound that absolutely terrified her. She screamed, grabbed Malty, and got both of them back into the hall where everyone was still sleeping. This of course woke everyone up though, and the warden came over to see what all the commotion was about. She asked the warden not to make any loud sounds and begged her not to open the door. Everyone in the hallway looked outside and saw this shadowy creature moving before it just disappeared. To this day, she still isn't exactly sure what she saw, but she's glad she has never encountered it again. In our number 8 spot today, we have this sleep paralysis demon. This story comes from the Reddit user JStation666, and this is what they had to say about their demon encounter. I was laying in bed and fell asleep, and I woke up not being able to move or scream. I tried my best and it went on for about 5 minutes. It stopped, but after that I felt hands around my throat trying to choke me. I look up and all I see is a very tall black outline of a figure with flaming hair, and I could feel its long finger-like claws around my neck. The next morning I get up and there's red marks around my neck of what looks like very large hands. Sadly, I didn't take a picture when I should have, but after, it's hard for me to get to sleep in a dark room. I feel like I would have thought this was just a scary case of sleep paralysis, but the waking up with hand marks around their throat truly is very scary and kind of unexplainable. I am glad that they made it through this frightening situation. In our number 7 spot today, we have this eye-changing demon. This story comes from the Reddit user Katzabar from a time when they were around 11 or 12 years old. He starts off with explaining that they moved apartments a lot growing up, and no matter where they went, entities would always find him, and he also tells us that he had bright blue eyes, like his mother's, which will be important later. They moved into a new apartment and things immediately began to go poorly. He had a dream where he was in a bright white room and there was a beast on the ceiling that looked into his eyes and roared. The roar obviously frightened him and he woke up screaming, which of course woke up his mother, who rushed to his side. His mother was also very frightened, not only because she woke up to the sound of her son screaming, but because his scream did not sound like a little boy's, but was like the scream of a grown man. If this whole situation wasn't already strange enough, after this dream, his eyes turned from that bright blue color to a hazel color and have never changed back to blue. If that really is true, I have no idea how that happened, and that is honestly pretty crazy. In our number 6 spot today, we have this gray skin demon. This story comes from Pink Magic 724 on Reddit and is about a night they had a few years ago while still in college. Pink Magic's best friend of many years was in town, so they went out for a dinner to catch up and spend some time together. They, of course, end up getting a bit caught up, as best friends do, and before they know it, it is around 2 a.m. and definitely time for them to head home. Pink Magic's friend was the one who drove, so they headed off to Pink Magic's house. They're at an intersection waiting for the light to turn green when Pink Magic turns their head and looks out the window into the car next to them. This is when she sees the person next to them is looking directly at them, but they have gray skin, completely black eyes with no white, and they are smiling, but their teeth are long and sharp. Whoever or whatever this thing is, it will not break eye contact. Pink Magic tries to scream, but no sound will come out, and eventually the friend sees the creature too and immediately speeds out of there. To this day, neither of them like to talk about it, and neither of them are quite sure what exactly they witnessed. In our number 5 spot today, we have this demon in your mind. This story comes from Sylvie on Reddit and starts off a few years ago after an argument with a friend. This friend was really upset, so Sylvie went to bed, definitely not feeling great about what had just happened, and Sylvie's Sylvie's behavior that led to this argument. About halfway through the night, Sylvie thinks that they had a dream, but they can't for sure say because they remember it so clearly. Sylvie woke up and had a knife in their hand, and the room was illuminated by the moonlight. As they looked around the room, they saw on the wall some words that looked like they were written in blood. Sylvie looked around the room again when something caught her eye. There was some sort of creature in the dark corner of the room that looked like one of those deep sea fish with the scary eyes and the really sharp teeth. I think they're called anglerfish. As soon as Sylvie saw this creature, the moonlight in the room changed to a flashing orange light, and this is when Sylvie definitely woke up in a cold sweat. Sylvie chalked it up to just a really scary dream and went and got ready for school and went about their day, but they just could not shake this feeling. After the first period was over, Sylvie was feeling really anxious, and they reached up to the cross necklace they were wearing when a voice spoke in their head. The voice said, "God won't save you." Sylvie said that they had a few more incidents with this demon, but after firmly telling it to leave and using their religion and faith as a guide and a protection, they have luckily been demon-free ever since. And at number 4 spot today, we have the demon in the basement. This story comes from the Reddit user DreamGuy72 and starts off in his first apartment in the summer of 1992 in Casper, Wyoming, on none other than Elm Street. The apartment was a basement suite where Dreamguy and his boyfriend lived, and their friends occupied the main floor suite above them. One day, Dreamguy was home alone and was repainting the main bedroom when he decided to take a break. After he had a drink, he headed back into the main bedroom, but this is when all of his hairs stood up. He saw that there was something painted on the opposite wall from the one that he had been painting. His heart was absolutely pounding as he walked up to the writing, and this is where he saw that the paint was still wet and dripping down the wall. The paintbrush he had been using was exactly where he left it, and there wasn't any paint on the floor. The words just said, "I am here." He of course got out of there as quickly as possible, and when he told his boyfriend later, he just kind of dismissed it. A few months go by, and Dreamguy and his boyfriend get home after a long day of both of them being out of the house all day. Dreamguy heads to the shower to get ready for bed, and as he's in the shower, he hears the bathroom door open and close. He of course just assumes it's his boyfriend, and he's rinsing the conditioner out of his hair when he asks his boyfriend if he is joining him in the shower, and that's when he hears the response, "Sounds good to me," but it is not his boyfriend's voice. He then feels ice-cold hands grab his shoulders and spin him around as he opens his eyes to see that no one else is there. He of course bolts it out of the bathroom, and he's now in the front room trying to catch his breath when he sees his boyfriend shaking, pointing to the bathroom, saying he saw it go in there. It's safe to say that Dreamguy didn't live there for much longer, and I am very glad he made it out of this apartment and lived to tell the tale. In our number 3 spot today, we have this lady ghost demon story. This story comes from the Reddit user 7-Leg Spider, and they really just dive in. Basically, for several years, Spider saw what they thought was just a lady ghost every night at the door of the closet. It happened for so long that Spider just got used to it and even started saying goodnight to her. Spider says she didn't look bad or rotten, she was just a lady with pale skin and dark hair. Anyway, after a few years of this, Spider finally tells a friend at school about the lady. This friend, of course, didn't believe the story right away, but the next day at school, he tells Spider that this lady tried to hurt him while he was sleeping. Now, Spider didn't believe the friend and thought he was just playing a prank. Some more time goes by and Spider decides to tell another friend about the lady, and the same thing happens where the next day she comes and tells Spider that the lady had tried to hurt her while she was sleeping. The first friend and the second friend didn't even know each other, so it's not like they could have been conspiring, which made Spider believe his first friend was telling the truth. Then, a while after that, Spider is on a video chat with a friend and they're talking about the paranormal when they both see something run across the screen. They chalk it up to just being a computer glitch, and Spider starts telling his friend about the lady, and then Spider begins to get extremely dizzy, like they're going to pass out. After it goes away, Spider tells their friend that they're okay, and the friend replies that they were out of it for at least a full minute, and that he could feel that someone was there trying to hurt Spider. I'm really glad that Spider and all the friends ended up being okay, and I really hope that they found a way to get rid of this lady demon. In our number 2 spot today, we have Zozo. This story comes from Reddit user Archaic Alchemy, who we'll call A. When A was 22, they were staying with their sister, and one night they had a couple of good friends over to hang out, and they decided to play around with a Ouija board, which is always the start of a good demon story. A had read about people encountering an entity called Zozo, and A really wanted some proof that things exist beyond our physical realm, so they wanted to use the Ouija board. Everyone places their hands on the planchette, and A calls out to Zozo. It took a few attempts before anything happened, but then the planchette began to move in figure eights. No matter what was asked, it just kept moving in figure eights until it finally spelled out M-A-N-A. That's us, we're MA. Maybe they were talking about our channel. A kept asking who they were talking to, and eventually they spelled out Zozo, and then things really escalated. The planchette was taken to the letters to spell out kill you, and
Attention Patriots, scan this QR code for a chance to win this mystery box for free. Or skip this ad if you hate free things. I can tell you right now this is going to upset a ton of people, because we're giving a chance to lucky viewers like you to get these outdoor...
When A asked who, Zozo spelled out one of the friends' names. They didn't take it seriously and kept asking more questions, and one friend made the mistake of insulting Zozo. The planchette begins frantically moving through the alphabet backwards over and over before it just stops. Then the energy in the room completely drops, and A knows that this means Zozo has manifested itself. Suddenly, A begins to laugh maniacally with no control over it. A could feel Zozo's presence inside, and could feel Zozo turning all of this hatred and anger towards the friend that had been named before. A's emotions suddenly completely switch, and they begin crying uncontrollably before again suddenly snapping back to anger. A's head turns involuntarily to look at the friend with a menacing grin as A pushes the planchette towards the friend. The friend decides it's rightfully time to leave, and shortly after they left, A felt like they regained control and Zozo's presence had disappeared. I'm so glad that nothing even crazier happened and that Zozo wasn't able to harm this friend. In our number 1 spot today, we have Velgrod. This story comes from the Reddit user Wheezy Donkey. Since he was a child, he's had interactions with a demon he knows as Velgrod. He first noticed the demon during the night as he was trying to fall asleep. It would continue saying his name quietly over and over again. This happened about once a month on a random night as he was trying to fall asleep, and he tried to ignore it, but every time it happened, the voice was a little louder because it was getting closer. One Friday night, he heard the voice and realized it was right at the end of his bed. He was frozen in fear, and every other night, if he waited long enough, the demon would just leave, but this time it wasn't happening. He found a lot of courage and lifted the blanket to inspect what he hoped was just his overactive imagination, but what he saw was too real for him to believe it was just imagination. This creature was tall and lanky with the yellow eyes of a reptile. His eyes were also bulging and very far apart. The creature apparently appeared as though he had been burned all over his body as he had charred and blistered skin. When the creature opened its mouth, it revealed its long, lizard-like tongue that descended to its chest. In his right hand, he had a cane he was using to keep himself from falling over, but the cane was covered in barbed wire. In his other hand, Velgrod was holding the Bible that was on the nightstand. When he held the Bible up into the air, it was immediately engulfed in flames that left nothing but ash. Velgrod kept eye contact the entire time as he used his foot to spread the ashes across the floor in a certain pattern, at the same time hissing menacingly. Velgrod then turned and began to walk away towards the door and down the stairs. Wheezy Donkey sat frozen with fear for a while before working up the courage to inspect the ash on the floor. When he finally did, he saw that the ash spelled out, "Hell is below you." Ooh, that was creepy.
Starting us off with number 10 is The Hand. This was from Stephen Wagner, who said his dad told him the story. So back in 1942 in Juarez, Mexico, his dad was around 20 years old and he went to a circus that was visiting town. His younger brother came along and they didn't really go to see the acts, they were more interested in the freak shows. Disappointed after seeing the performers, they were about to leave with two girls when they ran into a short, stubby man. The stranger introduced himself as the greatest illusionist in the world. That's quite a hefty title. animal. When asked if he was part of the circus, the man said the owner turned him down because his act was so frightening. The owner said he was Satan himself. Once he had their attention, he invited them back to his trailer in order to show them the act. Once inside, the stranger put a glove on his right hand, started running his left hand over his right while wiggling his fingers. He then started chanting bizarre words, and when he took the glove off, everyone's jaws just dropped. The stranger's hand was completely skeletal. He turned it, let them see the back, it was completely real. His brother went to take a closer look, and the man grabbed his head and said he was really about to show them something now, and at this point, everybody shat themselves and made a run for it. The stranger came out onto his porch laughing, and on the floor nearby was a bed of long nails pointing up, which he jumped onto. Weird flex, but okay. Blood started coming out of his feet, but he was still just laughing it off. And from that day onwards, Stephen's father and brother knew they had met Satan. Coming in at number 9 is Father Urban Grandi. Now, Father Urban was a Roman Catholic priest that lived in the Lodin part of France. He was under major scrutiny and received a lot of criticism for ignoring his celibacy vow. If anything, he was known for having sexual relations with many women and as someone who had an elevated sense of a lustful depravity. By 1632, he was accused of sending the demon Asmodai to enchant a group of Ursuline nuns into committing evil acts and becoming his sex slaves. You know, as priests do. After numerous nuns made accusations of seduction against him, he was arrested, then acquitted, and then re-arrested. During his second arrest, he was tortured by judges, after which they revealed a contract they found in his bedroom, which indicated he had signed a deal with Satan and many other demons. They saw it as evidence of him making a diabolical pact and convicted him of witchcraft and sentenced him to death. He was burnt at the stake. At number 8, we have A Better Life. This one's from Redditor Kodas_Gaming, who said he had a really rough upbringing. His father abandoned his family, and his mother was a heroin addict. He used to see her getting beat to a pulp, after which she'd take her frustrations out on him. CPS ended up taking him and his brother away, but a few years later, his mum was clean and back with their dad, and they regained custody. Sort of happy ending, kind of, but not really. They lived in a small house in central Texas, and according to the user, the house had a terrifying aura. Anytime he was home, he felt like he was being watched, especially in the bathroom, and he would have regular nightmares. And at this point in his life, his mum was working herself to death because their dad was a lazy slob who did nothing. She got so depressed she tried to take her own life, and desperate to help, the user started praying to God every single day. But nothing changed. He realized for something to change, perhaps he could call on the demonic entity that engulfed his house rather than God. He researched satanic rituals for ages and finally found the one he needed. While his family were out for ice cream one day, he got on his knees, wax coming down the candles he'd lit, and cut his hand and started drawing symbols on the ground in his blood. Obviously while crying the whole time, because who wouldn't cry after doing that? He recited the words and made the deal. And right after he did that, a cold breeze swept through the house and everything went black. But he was pretty much unfazed because he expected something like that to happen, so he went to bed that night and had the worst nightmare ever. He saw himself in the reflection of the mirror in the bathroom with corpse grey skin, bloody tears, and his eyes were crimson as well. There was a noose around his neck and his hair was bloody. During the dream, he thought, this can't be me, and then the reflection started laughing, saying, it is now, you made the deal. He woke up in the bathtub covered in scratches and scars, and it just kept happening and getting worse. 1 month later, he started seeing things, hearing things, his nail beds began to recede and bleed, his canines became sharper, and his tongue used to get cut out of nowhere, and he started full-on hallucinating and having visions of the past, of native people being slaughtered. And how did that even happen? I don't even know. And what did he get out of all of this? Other than his mum getting a higher paying job, not much at all. So, moral of the story, know what you're getting into before you ask the devil for help. Filling our number 7 slot is Joseph Smith. Now, Joseph was a Mormon prophet in the early 1800s who claimed he encountered Satan before he saw Christ for the first time. We have both big shots in one story, how about that? The story goes that despite never doing this before, one day he just decided he was going to pray to God out loud. He went into the woods on a sunny day and knelt down and began to pray. I don't know why he went into the woods, he could have just done it in his house, but okay. But as soon as he did, he said he felt he was seized by a power that engulfed him entirely. He said it was so powerful he tried to speak but felt like his tongue was bound. A thick darkness surrounded him and he thought for sure he was going to die. And I mean, fair enough for being realistic. If I felt that, I'd probably think I was going to die too. He was ready to sink into this despair that was around him, but in one final hope, he used all his strength to call on God to get him out of Satan's hold. Then, all of a sudden, he saw a huge pillar of light over his head, which came down on him. As the light rested on him, he saw two personages in the air above him, and everything was fine again. At least this one had a happy ending, sort of. Now, at number 6 is Madame Lalaurie. Delphine Lalaurie has been mentioned many times on this channel, but just a quick recap for you. She was a big Creole socialite in New Orleans. To the public, that is. Inside her house, she tortured and killed the majority of her slaves in a way you can't even imagine. In 1834, a house fire took over her mansion, and that's when she got exposed because authorities found bodies upon bodies of bound or mutilated slaves. One's stomach had been cut open and his intestines were wrapped around his neck. A bucket was also found with various organs from various slaves. A bucket. That's how much mass killing the woman was doing, that she needed a bucket for all the organs she was harvesting. Anyway, with some stroke of luck, she managed to escape New Orleans and go to France, but many believe she didn't just escape due to luck. She invented a religion involving voodoo and black magic, and on top of that, people vehemently believe she made a pact with the devil in order to be able to still be wealthy, still be free, and escape whilst committing these horrendous acts. I mean, for me, it was either the devil pact or she paid a lot of important money to let her go. What do you guys think? Coming in at number 5 is the Satanic Cult. This one's from Brad, who said back in 2005, him and his friends spent one summer TPing a lot of houses. In the town they grew up, there were always rumors of a satanic cult that operated around a 10-minute drive away. So one day they decided to go check it out and TP it. Ballsy move, I have to say. The 5 friends went there the day before moon, which I guess is a part of every scary story you hear nowadays, and they bypassed the fence and ended up in a garden enclosure and heard an eerie high-pitched sound.
Too few books were about my people. Where's our representation?
Would you read an excerpt?
Yo, Sharonda, girl, you be pregnant again?
Ignoring it, they continued to explore, found an old locked church, and found nothing else and decided to leave. Bit anticlimactic, but just stay with me. When they got to their car, their key, which was working perfectly 10 minutes prior, just stopped working. The car alarm started going off, and then it magically just unlocked by itself. They piled in and drove off, and mid-drive, the lights in the car just went off. The driver didn't press anything to cause it, it just happened. Panicked, they rushed home, and when Brad got to his front porch, he found 3 identical black cats. Keep in mind, he lives a good 25 miles away from the cult, so how do these cats even get to his house? He took the cats as a bad omen and decided to take the cats a few miles out of town and leave them there. And the whole drive, he was being followed by 2 black cars despite taking small dirt roads. Now, I don't know if people were just messing with him here or the satanic cult was there and they saw him and everything was their doing, but either way, it's scary and it's creepy. At number 4 is Giuseppe Tartini. Now, from the name, doesn't he just sound like a brilliant Italian musician of some kind? His name just has the ring to it, you know? Anyway, Tartini was an Italian composer and violinist during the Baroque period. He was very influential in Italy, but he was also known for his huge inferiority complex and uncontrollable temper. And I can just see that equaling to a lot of smashed violins. But anyway, the story goes that one day Tartini heard Francesco Veracini playing the violin better than him, and he was fuming and also dissatisfied with his own skills. The event made him spiral into depression for months, and in that time he worked in solitude and practiced the violin for 12 hours a day. During this period, it's said he had a dream in which the devil appeared and he met him. He appeared at the foot of his bed and played a sonata on the violin like he invented the damn activity. He offered him success in all his musical dreams in exchange for his soul. Did he accept? Well, it was never really confirmed, but when he woke up the next day, he wrote down as much of the sonata as he could, but no matter how many times he played it, it just wasn't as good as the Devil's version. If you want to check it out, the sonata in question is called the Devil's Trill Sonata, his most well-known piece, and it's quite hard to play even by today's standards. But the fact he could never play it as well as the Devil, I mean, doesn't that just indicate he wasn't successful in everything he wanted to be? So, am I the only one identifying this major plot hole we have going on? Did he accept? Did he not? Let me know, Tartini. Filling our number 3 slot is Gemma Galgani. Gemma was an Italian mystic, later saint, in Italy during the late 19th century. She believed that the devil was waging a personal war against her. She said he loved giving her horrible headaches to the point she couldn't even pray. I mean, honestly, I just feel like that was a bad migraine, but moving on. She went on to say that once she was writing at her desk alone and the devil came and dragged her from the table by her hair with such force that her hair came out in clumps. In another attack, the devil took the form of a big black dog and put his paws on her shoulders, making her whole body ache all over. And in another one, she was drinking holy water and he twisted her arms so backwards that she fell to the ground in pain. If that's not bad enough, she said he even took on the form of people she trusted or knew, and once he even took the form of an angel. The worst incident though was when he started giving her blows to the head. She ran to her room but found him there with a rope. He kept trying to get her to give in to the wickedness and she kept resisting, and so he kept striking her with the rope as she was on the ground. He then threw her on the bed, then dragged her from it and violently smashed her head against the ground, and she passed out. Just imagine all this happening in your room and no one's there to help you. I'd be terrified. But I'm also curious as to what form the devil took when he attacked her all those times, and if anybody was around, were they seeing this happen? Was she being attacked by an invisible force? Like, what was happening here? Now at number 2 is Steve. This one's from Redditor Shabby Boa, whose real name is Steve and who used to be a trucker for 30 years. One night after a drop-off, he was on his way back home when he stopped at a diner to pee. It was completely empty, no customers, no staff, absolutely no one. He quickly peed, and when he came out, a grey-haired man was sitting at the bar. He told Steve he owned the diner and gave him food and a drink. When he got up to leave, the man said food is not what you truly desired tonight. Waited out, Steve left and got into his truck. About an hour and a half later, he had to pee again. Steve, you've got a small bladder, mate, and saw another small diner which he stopped at. He went inside and again it was completely empty, save a grey-haired man at the bar. It was the same man who said nice to have you back, Steve, as soon as he walked in. Steve got pissed at this point, thinking he was being screwed over by this guy, and demanded to know what the guy wanted. He said he was trying to help Steve. He started asking about Steve and how he used to have a family. Steve told him his wife and daughter died in a house fire years ago caused by faulty wiring. But the man questioned him, saying it wasn't just faulty wiring. The faulty wiring was a happy coincidence that just so happened to have happened the same time Steve left a lit cigarette in the house. Steve fought with him more, and in the end the man offered him a deal. He said he could bring back his wife and daughter in exchange for his soul after he died. Thinking it was complete bullshit, he agreed and left the diner. Before he did, he asked the man who he was, to which he responded, I am the devil. That night he got home as if he never stopped anywhere at all, and when he entered the house, he heard his wife say, Steve, is that you? And the small footsteps of his daughter. He was so excited, but when they came down the stairs, their skin was charred black. Chunks of it were falling off, their clothes had fused and melted with their skin, and Steve could barely hold in his puke. And at that point he'd realized he'd made the biggest mistake ever, and that the next 30 years were literally gonna be hell. And finally, at number 1 is The Man. This one's from VR Greg, who said she met the devil for the first time when she was 8 years old. She was walking through a forest on her way home from school when she encountered a black-haired man in a shabby suit. Except one foot of his was a goat hoof and the other was a rooster claw. She could see them when she looked at him directly, but peripherally they looked completely normal. She took him for a walk and then he left. By the time she was a teenager, she assumed the counter was maybe a dream, or maybe that she just imagined the whole thing. But one day she was watching a news story about a man who got away with killing his wife, and as they showed the judge announcing the not guilty verdict, the murderer turned around and smiled at a man behind him who wasn't his lawyer. She recognized him right right away. Black hair, shabby suit, hadn't aged a day. Her parents threw her a surprise 16th birthday to which nobody came to, which is just really sad. I'm sorry that happened to you. She ran home crying and she knew no one came because her classmate Erin had her party the same day just to spite her. That night she slept thinking about all the horrible ways Erin deserved to be punished, and the next day at the breakfast table her dad looked shaken. He told her that Erin had been found dead in the park. She met the devil the same day in her room and he told her she had wanted it to happen and he executed it for her. He offered her a deal, but thankfully the one piece of common sense that 90% of people possess is knowing that you should never make a deal with the devil, so she didn't. The girl didn't see him again until the funeral of her mother, where he told her the doctors lied to her about her mother dying peacefully, that it was agony and that no one was around to help her. She started immediately screaming and her dad ran over to her and made her sit down. When she asked him where the black-haired man was, he said, "You were standing alone, honey," and just started screaming out of nowhere. Shivers. That gave me shivers.
Number 10, Richard Cabell. This man lived in Devon, England during the 1600s and was apparently a huge dirtbag. He would torment people in his town and even abuse his wife. One night, in a violent rage, he struck his wife and she tried to escape. He then hunted her down and killed her and her dog. We all know what happens next. People believe that he felt he had the freedom to treat everyone horribly because he made a deal with the devil for immortality. But he did eventually die on July 5th, 1677. After he died, there were reports of a ghostly figure walking around the gravesite. This freaked out the locals so much, so they put a giant slab of stone on top of his grave, as well as encased the tomb with metal bars. And it was said that at night you could see a ghostly figure that kind of looked like a beast with glowing red eyes. Some people thought that it was Satan looking for the soul that belonged to him. Number 9, the carpenter. The devil's weaved into history in so many different places. This ancient tale comes from a village called Tyrol in Austria. The legend has it that the locals had a well-traveled bridge that they used to cross from their village to a village called Schruns. One day, the bridge was destroyed in a massive flood. The villagers were very distressed, so they got help from a local carpenter. They told him that if he could rebuild the bridge in 3 days, they would pay him a huge amount of money. He knew such a task would be impossible, so he asked the villagers if he could have a day to think about it in order to come up with a solution. That night, when he was trying to find a way to build the bridge in such a short period of time, he was visited by a man with a little green hat. I love how these stories just have some creepy dude that shows up to your house in the middle of the night, and you're like, I wonder what he wants. Couldn't be anything bad. Well, the little man told the carpenter that he would build the bridge for him, and he could keep all the money. The only thing he wanted in return was the soul from the first person to leave this house and cross the bridge. The carpenter knew.
My name's Eric. I am 39 years old. I've started thinking about getting Botox Cosmetic for the last couple of years. I just see myself on video calls all day, and I really start noticing the lines. I'm still Eric, and I got Botox Cosmetic. I'm seeing
this was the devil, so he had a plan. The next day, the bridge was built and the carpenter showed up. The devil saw him there and was jumping in excitement to get his prize. Then, the carpenter pushed a goat onto the bridge and said, "Here's your soul." You got played, dude. Legend says the devil took the goat and people started roasting him as he was walking around with the goat. People were like, "Hey, you should have read the fine print. Oh, you two look like a great couple." I just love the idea of people roasting the devil. Like, oh, Prince of Darkness can't trick a tradesman. Number 8, George Lukens. Back in the day, if you got sick, you kind of had 2 options. You either got sicker and died, or you could go to a church and get an exorcism. On May 31st, 1788, George Lukens wasn't feeling too hot. He had started having convulsions, and it was reported that he would yell in a voice that didn't sound human. So he went to the doctor, but after trying almost everything, the doctors couldn't cure him of whatever his ailment was. So he had plan B. He went to see Reverend Easterbrook to get his soul washed. The Reverend tried to help George, but it seemed that what was tormenting him was too strong for just him. So he brought in 6 other priests to perform a super exorcism. The 7 of them took their combined power to cleanse George. During the process, he changed through 7 different demonic personalities, one of which claimed to be the devil. After the super exorcism, George was cured, and probably didn't live past 35 because that's how life went back then. Number 7, the Codex Gigas. Would you read a book that might have been written by the devil? I think that one's a hard pass for me. I'll stick to reading the back of cereal boxes. Well, the Codex Gigas is said to have the devil's actual handwriting, and whoever reads it becomes cursed. Why would you read that? I don't know if I believe that the devil's handwriting is in the book, but I wouldn't want to be wrong just for some light reading. The story goes that back in 1523, Ludovico Spoletano wanted to make the best spaghetti ever, so he summoned the devil. Nah, I'm just kidding. He wanted to answer a series of questions he'd been asked. Exam season is very tough. It's documented that the devil possessed him, grabbed a pen, and started writing. Most of the text has never been decoded except for one sentence that says, "I think it smells like updog." Number 6, Through the Window. This one was written by Redditor Gayreka. It's a story his father told him about when his dad was growing up. He said that when his dad and uncle were younger, his uncle was a bit of a rebellious kid. Never listened, would stay up late, draw dicks on everything. His father told him that it was a big problem, that his uncle was constantly challenging authority and would get in fights with his parents all the time. Well, one night, the whole family heard a blood-curdling scream come from his uncle's room. The family rushed in there, and his uncle was freaking out. He said there was a man standing outside his window. Their father went to check for someone, but couldn't find anything. His uncle describes the man as wearing a long trench coat and having no face except for glowing red eyes. After this, his uncle was as sweet as pie, became a respectful member of society. So was this a devil encounter? Or was this a story a father told his son so he wouldn't act up? That's healthy parenting. Scare him psychologically, but he'll be a good kid. Number 5, Michael Scott.
No, God!
Not the hilarious character from The Office. Michael Scott was a Scottish mathematician born in 1175 and is considered one of the most brilliant men to come out of Scotland. He traveled through Europe and eventually ended up in Italy. While in Italy, his brilliance didn't go unnoticed. He gained the attention of Emperor Frederick II. Frederick brought Michael into his court as the head astrologer. But when you're a super smart guy back then, people get a little suspicious. It's said he could summon demons to do his bidding, and they would go all over the world to bring him delicacies. And that's just where his power started. There's myths of him defeating a coven of witches that he turned into stone. It's even said he changed the course of the river Steeds. But the most famous one is him summoning the devil to build a road to his castle. His father had just built a shiny new castle and it needed a road. I mean, you don't want to be the only castle in the neighborhood without a road. Like, what do people think? So he called the devil and many demons to build a road for him. He could have just hired contractors. He owed the devil his soul and foresaw that the devil would kill him by dropping a rock on his head. So he always wore a metal cap.
Clever girl.
But one day, he took off his metal cap when entering a church, and a rock fell on his head and killed him. They get you when you least expect. Number 4, John Dee. John Dee was born in 1527 on July 13th. He was an Elizabethan mathematician and astrologer, but he also liked to dabble in the occult. He was into some pretty freaky stuff. Even though he was researching black magic behind closed doors, he managed to work his way up as a man of intellect, becoming the royal astrologer for Queen Mary. However, his little secrets caught up with him, and he was arrested for heresy in 1555. How do you get caught for something back then? The only way you would find out would be if you told people. Like, how was your weekend? Pretty good, you know, sacrificed a goat to the Dark Lord. Anyways, when he got out, he kept digging into the occult. In 1582, he claimed to contact the spirit world. People weren't a fan of this, so he had to move up north to the Manchester Collegiate Church. You can go visit his office to this day. There's the desk that he worked at with a giant burn mark in it. It's said that it's the devil's footprint. I would be pissed. I work all this time to summon the devil. He shows up and he puts his feet on my furniture. Number 3, Robert Johnson. Become one of the greatest musicians who ever lived, and people are going to start rumors about you. Robert Johnson is one of the most talented and influential blues musicians who has ever walked the earth. And a big myth about him is that he sold his soul to the devil to become as great as he did. As the story goes, he was walking down a highway and came across a man that offered him the ability
Facts, me
to play
too,
the
bro. That's
blues
why I
like
definitely
no
had to
one's
get
ever
this shit.
done before, but it would cost him his soul. Robert was like, yeah, I'll do that. I mean, what is a soul really? It's like a concept or like whatever. Well, Robert went down in history for his amazing skills and died suspiciously at 27. Number 2, Niccolo Paganini. Said to be the greatest violinist who ever lived. Seemed to be a common theme that back in the day, if you were great at something, they probably thought you sold your soul to the devil. No, it can be that you have like a natural gift and you work super hard, you just made a deal. Well, the same speculation goes for Niccolo. He was an Italian violinist like none other. He was so gifted that he would surpass anyone who ever taught him. He was touring at 15 and probably got hit on a lot. Part of why people probably thought that he had sold his soul to the devil was that he looked so ghoulish. He was tall, skinny, had pale skin, long black hair. He was kind of like a hot Edward Scissorhands. People would even say that they could see the devil hold his violin while he played. I think they were just jealous. Number 1, George Whitefield. Now this one is my favorite for sure. George was a traveling evangelist. He wandered around trying to get people hyped on God. I mean, we've all seen these guys.
Do it, Jesus! A brand new hit. Bam, 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 bam.
In 1740, George was in Ipswich, Massachusetts. He was putting on a banger show. Like, people were going nuts. Apparently, the sermon was so hot and he was bashing the devil so hard that the devil showed up and was like, "You talking?" And George was like, "Yeah, I'm talking." And then he fought the devil. This is like an episode of Maury. George then summoned the holy power to push the devil out, and after that, the devil fell off a cliff and landed on one foot. He's got like a +10 on acrobatics. It's said that the devil's footprint is there to this day. The devil is probably at home like, "Dude, I don't even know you. Why are you talking so much smack?" At number 10, we have a close call. Now, this video will probably scare the hell out of some people, but I think of this as just the perfect representation of how close you can get to sharks without having them tear you to pieces. Now, that is a little freaky. That's a hammerhead shark, and you can see it sweeps in very close, and it looks like it's gonna take a chunk out of our diver, but then he's okay. Coming in at number 9, we have Julie Wolfe. When you think of a canoe trip, you think about peace and calm waters. Every time I get into a canoe, I think I'm in a rom-com and I'm randomly gonna run into Jennifer Aniston and then we're gonna fall in love next to a campfire. Well, Julie Wolfe didn't have that experience at all. Julie was riding her canoe off the coast of California when she got rocked by something strange. It felt as if she had bumped into a rock, but she was way out in the ocean, so there was no way she could have run into land. Turns out, it was a great white shark. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a great time to me. Well, it got even worse when the shark bit into her canoe. This tore a hole into it, but Julie still had some time. She started to paddle back to shore and was able to get back to land before the whole thing sunk into the ocean. On the shark's side, he probably thought he was getting a nice snack, and then he just got a mouthful of carbon fiber. That's like when you put some Kraft cheese on your burger, but you forget to take the plastic off. Coming in at number 8, we have Dan Shoesmith. A diving instructor was leading a shark dive, and everything seemed to be going as planned. He took his group down to the bottom of the ocean, they kneeled in the sand, and the shark started to swim around them. The time underwater was finishing up, and they started to ascend to the surface. Now, normally the sharks would swim away at this point, but they started to follow the group to the surface. Not only that, but it seemed that they were getting closer. Dan got his group of divers to huddle together and stick their fins out to create some distance in case the sharks got close. He then filled a safety buoy full of air and sent it to the surface so the boats would know that he was approaching the surface. When he did this, one of the sharks chased the buoy to the surface. The group of divers waited about 10 meters below the surface for what would have felt like an eternity, but eventually the sharks left and they were able to safely exit the water. Coming in at number 7, we have the Jaws encounter. I had to put a movie one on this list, especially this movie. Think about what your chances of running into a shark are, how much time you spend around water. I know some people who are even afraid of swimming in pools because they think something is going to try and eat them, and this is largely part of this movie. Jaws gave generation after generation an irrational fear of sharks. And yes, it's an irrational fear because you'll see someone who's afraid of sharks wolf down a bunch of high fructose corn syrup like diabetes isn't licking its lips. Steven Spielberg has even said if he could go back in time, he wouldn't make Jaws because it demonized sharks in such a way. But the opening scene of this movie where a girl is getting munched down to that famous Donna is still one of the most iconic movie moments ever. It just sucks that so many people became afraid of something that they will probably never see in real life. Coming in at number 6, we have the Australian kayakers. A couple of mates off the coast of Australia were going for a nice kayak ride when they got an unexpected visitor. These guys didn't get a bump like Julie Wolfe, but almost like it was pulled right out of a movie. They saw a fin behind them trailing them, waiting to see if one of them was foolish enough to tip over their kayak. The two men were a little frightened, but they just decided they would wait it out. One of the men later described the encounter as a dog coming to check out what was going on. They didn't have a lot of options to scare off their curious friend, so they went with slapping the water with their paddles. Turns out that worked perfectly. Coming in at number 5, we have Cops vs. Sharks. No, this isn't the title of the new motion picture that's going to be coming out this fall. It's actually an incident that happened in Australia. It should be no surprise that Australia has back-to-back slots on a list about shark encounters. Well, a couple of police were responding to something that had them out on a little dinghy. I don't know what kind of water crime that could be, but they were out on a very small boat and a 16-foot great white shark swam by the boat. I don't think there's anything in the police training manual about that. Coming in at number 4, we have when Sam Jackson got eaten by a shark. Okay, just one more movie one on the list. This one is my favorite Sam Jackson movie moment ever. Sam Jackson is trying to rally the troops in the movie Deep Blue Sea. It's a moment of motivation. It seems like everything is about to turn around. But here's the thing about Deep Blue Sea. It's more of a horror movie than an action movie. And when things seem like they're starting to get good in a horror movie, you know they're about to get so much worse. That clip is so funny. A bunch of them got wetsuits on and everyone is glistening with sweat for some reason. I love every second of it. Cheesy deaths in movies are some of my favorite things. Alright, let's move back to real people getting eaten by sharks. Coming in at number 3, we have bathroom break. You know, if you're tucked away in a cage, the shark will find some way to get to you. A group of divers were down in a cage taking some photos of a massive shark swimming by when this underwater king hit them with one of these. I don't think you can smell it because you're underwater, but that poop is going to cover every inch of you. You're gonna have poop under your fingernails, poop in your eyebrows. You're gonna become one with the poop. Coming in at number 2, we have Scarier Than It Looks. There wasn't a lot that people watching could do in our next clip. They're just standing around watching in horror. Yeah, it looks like that shark is gonna flip over that little kayak and eat that dude like he's downing a Glizzy Gladiator hot dog. But here's the thing, that's a basking shark. They only eat plankton. They don't even have teeth. So even though that looks like it would be terrifying to be in the water with, it's really just a big vegan swimming out there. And coming in at the number 1 spot, we have The Cage Won't Protect You. The thing about shark diving is you want to ensure you're going to see a shark, so sometimes you bring bait. And the bait can get the sharks a little bit excited. A lot of people will go into a cage to try and avoid contact with the shark. But here's the thing about sharks. They are basically a spine, a jaw, and then all muscle and cartilage. So sometimes they can squeeze into very small spaces and you can have something like this happen.
He's in the cage. Oh my God.
Here's something interesting about that clip. There was a diver in the cage with the shark. The shark is thrashing all over the place. You have blood in the water. Eventually the shark works its way out of the cage and then the diver returns to the surface and signals that he is okay and walks away without a scratch and the most amazing story to tell at a party.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have exoplanets. One of the first things spoken about in the 12-minute long anonymous video is that around 25 years ago, we didn't know that planets existed outside of our solar system. While that seems hard to believe, that is actually basically true, keeping in mind that this video was released in 2017. The first exoplanets, which are what planets outside of our solar system are called, were discovered in 1992, which is super recently. The video then goes on to explain that today we have found over 3,400 exoplanets that orbit other suns. This may seem redundant or unimportant, but this is a really important part of our search for alien life. With the vastness of space, there are so many places that need to be searched, so we have to find some place to start, and these planets are the perfect place. It is entirely possible that alien life may thrive off of entirely different things than life as we know it. The things we need to survive might be detrimental to alien life, but how are we supposed to know that when we don't know any aliens? This is why we started our search by looking for places with conditions similar to Earth, which we now call habitable planets. Part of a habitable planet's requirements is that they are orbiting a star, but that they aren't too close or too far from it like we are with the sun. So what the video is trying to get across is that while 25 years ago we didn't know any, we now know of thousands of planets that might be holding some kind of alien life. While we haven't found the proof yet, we at least have a pretty stellar starting point. In our number 9 spot, spot today we have Dr. Brian O'Leary. One thing Anonymous mentioned in the video was an apparent quote from Dr. Brian O'Leary, who's a former NASA astronaut and Princeton physics professor. The video stated that he said that there is abundant evidence that we are being contacted, that civilizations have been monitoring us for a very long time, and that their appearance is bizarre from any type of traditional materialistic Western point of view, and that these visitors use the technologies of consciousness, they use droids, they use co-rotating magnetic discs for their propulsion systems, which seems to be a common denominator of the UFO phenomenon. I obviously have no idea how I could possibly substantiate these claims, but they certainly are interesting regardless of what you personally believe. This could of course just be nonsense in order to stir up the masses, but it could also be someone who's finally telling us the truth, but we're all just too skeptical at this point to believe it. Let me know down below in the comments what you think of what Dr. O'Leary said. Do you think it's a hunk of baloney, or do you think that he just might be telling the truth? In our number 8 spot today we have the FBI documents. Around the halfway mark, the person in the anonymous video begins to discuss some sort of FBI documents that are apparently unclassified, just sitting there on the website. The video claims that the documents suggest that we've not only been visited by aliens from space, but also beings from other dimensions. The video does explain that the document didn't originate from within the FBI, but rather from a university department head, but that the FBI treated the document with the utmost importance, which is certainly interesting. It's also very important to note, however, that this document was sent in 1947. I'm not sure if that makes the claims more or less likely or credible, but the timing of it definitely seems important, at least to me. While this is one of those things that you have to draw your own conclusions from, in the video it is mentioned that while we are arguing whether or not supposed UFO or alien sightings have really taken place here on Earth or in space, there are real instances of extraterrestrial beings visiting us, but we're just too focused on the debate to open our eyes and see for ourselves. In our number 7 spot today we have esoteric matters. After the discussion of the FBI documents, there is a claim that these beings that have apparently been visiting us are coming not from a planet as we think of it, but rather some sort of etheric planet that interpenetrates with our own, but that we are unable to perceive. Apparently, if you're a student of esoteric matters, these concepts will make a lot more sense to you, or so this anonymous video claims. Apparently, these alien beings are able to make a conscious decision to enter our plane, and in that same respect, they're also to make a decision to disappear from our view. Apparently, they're visiting us as they are thinking about settling here on our plane, and that they are coming here peacefully. During these visits, they are also said to have technology that would destroy any sort of attack made on them, so it is advised that if they do make themselves visible to us, we do not attack or make them feel threatened. I'm not so sure about this one, but at the end of the day, I am certainly no student of esoteric matters, so maybe it's just something that my brain cannot comprehend with the knowledge I currently have. In our number 6 spot today, we have this UFO footage. This UFO footage is coming from another anonymous video which claims that real UFO footage is always censored, and that this video has been previously censored, but they were here to expose the truth. It is unclear where this UFO video was taken, and at the end of the day, I'm no expert in debunking these things, so it's tough to say whether or not it's real, but let's all just take a look and you can judge for yourselves.
I'm to roll up the reefer.
I know that wasn't the most exciting video, but what do we think aliens are going to be doing if they really are visiting us? What do you guys think? Do you guys think that this video is really showing some sort of UFO? And if you do you think it's aliens or just some sort of secret project that we aren't privy to? In our number 5 spot today, we have perseverance. A point that was made in the video is something that we are actually now watching happen in real time, and that is the mission to Mars for the Perseverance rover that is currently there.
Overwhelmed with what it takes to start a business? Working with random experts on top of fees and paperwork while time slips away? You need Busy. Busy makes starting a business simple and affordable from $0 plus a state fee. Start your business today at busy.com.
We are Wordens, your go-to wholesale textile supplier. Whether you're looking for high-quality t-shirts, polos, cozy sweats, bag collection, or promotional gifts, we have got you covered. Our mission is to make your wholesale and retail experience seamless and cost-effective, allowing you to focus on what matters most: growing your business.
Digging around in the soil. The video stated that Mars may hold signs of an ancient environment that may have been favorable to microbial life. Well, that is exactly true, and the reason the rover is there at all. The Perseverance rover launched from Earth on July 30th, 2020 and made an incredible and successful landing on Mars on February 18th, 2021. While the rover has provided us with some incredible high-definition photos of the red planet, which truly are incredible to look at, its main objective is to dig around and search for ancient signs of life, collecting rock and soil samples for a possible return to Earth for further research. While Mars' thin atmosphere is unable to shield the planet from the high amounts of radiation coming from space now, it is thought that the atmosphere did once act as a better shield, and that the environment of Mars may have once been a great host for life, which is exactly why this mission is so important. While when the anonymous video was first released, we were still a ways away from the Perseverance mission taking place, it's really cool to see how it has come to fruition, and it's exciting to see the new photos and discoveries that are made each day. In our number 4 spot today, we have UFO footage part 2. We have to include just one more video of what is claimed to be proof of aliens visiting us on Earth before we get back into the more science-y top 3 points. This is another video that was uploaded by a member of Anonymous, and it comes from 2017. The video features a dark sky, but it shows what looks like some sort of aircraft with a few flashing lights, and it seems like it is able to basically just hover there. Not long after the video starts, another mysterious UFO seemingly joins the first one, and the two are just seen floating there. What do you guys think these could be? I obviously don't know what an alien aircraft would look like, so it's tough to say if this is a realistic example or not. All I know is that if this isn't someone playing a trick and they really saw this in the sky, I have no other possible explanations of what it could be. In our number 3 spot today, we have TRAPPIST-1. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying the video so far. One of the things Anonymous mentioned in the video was a nearby star called TRAPPIST-1. The video didn't go into too much detail about this, but I'm here to do that now so we can all know what they were talking about. While TRAPPIST-1 is a star, the revelation that the video spoke about was that this star has an entire solar system of Earth-like planets. This discovery first came in 2017, and upon further research, in 2018 it was revealed that some of the planets just may harbor even more water than Earth does. Some of the planets are a little too close to the star, so the water is more atmospheric water vapor. The ones in the middle have liquid water, like us, and the furthest ones have ice. TRAPPIST-1 is now the most thoroughly known planetary system apart from ours, which is kinda cool. While the Anonymous video made it seem like there was a full-blown advanced alien civilization living in this solar system, there still might be potential for some form of microbial life that we just haven't quite found yet. And that is very cool. In our number 2 spot today, we have Enceladus. If you had heard of Enceladus before the Anonymous video, there's a good chance you knew it as basically an icy snowball floating around in space, or perhaps you simply knew it as a small moon of Saturn with a diameter of 502 kilometers, but as it turns out, this small moon might hold some pretty amazing potential. It was discovered that this moon has hydrothermal processes going on underneath its crust. To us non-scientists, that means next to nothing, but what if I said that means that it just might have all of the requirements for life, and that it is becoming a greater possibility that we might find microbial life there. Basically, this moon has an icy shell for a surface and then a rocky interior, but between those two layers is a warm ocean, and this ocean is where scientists think the life is most likely to be. This discovery came almost accidentally when the Cassini orbiter arrived to Saturn in 2005, and it found water plumes shooting out of the cracks in the surface of the moon, which made scientists realize that it just may be geologically active. Through more research and by flying the orbiter through the water, by the time 2015 rolled around, scientists knew that it was holding all of the keys to life. While this little moon was never the original focus of research, it quickly took over with its incredibly exciting potential. In our number 1 spot today, we have Europa. We've got another moon to talk about that was mentioned in the video that also just might be holding the keys to us finding alien life, but this time we're taking it over to Jupiter and its icy moon, Europa. Europa has been a point of interest for a while after NASA's Galileo Jupiter probe in the
1990s revealed an unusually warm spot in Europa's cold surface. In March of 2014, the Hubble telescope detected what scientists thought might be a plume of water vapor, but the caution turned to cautious excitement and optimism in February of 2016 when the telescope caught another, much larger plume in the same spot. This has led to the creation of the Europa Clipper mission. While this mission doesn't yet have a set date, it will see an orbiter flying to Europa to fly through these plumes in an attempt to see what they are made out of, similar to the one we just talked about, to see if it really is holding the key to life, or maybe even life itself. One of the scientists on the Clipper mission, Robert Pappalardo, explained that if there is life on Europa, it almost certainly was completely independent from the origin of life on Earth. That would mean the origin of life must be pretty easy throughout the galaxy and beyond.
A new UFO sighting took place tonight. This footage was filmed in the USA. Thermal analysis shows what could be a smaller ship flying around, and a much larger mothership behind it. Save and share this video before it's too late.
Oh my god, that is so scary. Also, why do they have to say save and share this video before it's too late? That just creeps me out. Don't say things like that. Like, that and the music, it just makes me think that it's the end of the world. That looked like an alien ship, and the whole lightning and spooky atmosphere is not helping. Oh no, the aliens are coming. We gotta prepare. We need a secret underground bunker. Shut up, don't say that, Chris. I know, but don't scare me.
A 30-second video from Jharkhand is going viral all over the internet. In the video, a strange, eerie-looking human figure can be seen strolling down the road. The video was apparently recorded on the Chadwa Dam Bridge in the Hazaribagh district by some bikers. Seeing that, some are saying that it is an alien and some are claiming it to be a ghost. After the appearance, there has been a war on the social media sites among the people to determine the exact type of supernatural being that the creature is.
Maybe it's a ghost alien. Maybe it's a ghost and an alien, a ghost alien. Why is it so creepy? Like, it's so lanky and weird. But at the same time, I feel like aliens are more stealthy than that, you know? Like, I feel like it wouldn't just be walking like, oh, da-da-da-da, hey, yo, what's up, you know? Like, just for everyone to see. They've been stealthy and hiding themselves for years, potentially, on Earth, so why would they just reveal themselves now? Doesn't really make sense. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe he's just not a good alien. Maybe that's what it is. But it's really creepy. Like, legs were so skinny. Like, that did not look like a human. That looked like a creature of some sort. Ugh. Also, alien, if you're watching this video, just kidding. You're beautiful. Love you.
I got it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
What the hell? That strange light in the sky is one of 1,100 UFO sightings in Canada last year. According to the annual survey released by Ufology Research of Manitoba, there are at least 3 such sightings in the country every day.
UFO reports are still a thing. People are reporting them in greater and greater numbers every year.
I'm never going to BC. It's beautiful there, and I was like, I want to go this summer. Yeah. 3 sightings of UFOs per day? Yeah, that's where they're hiding. They're hiding in the wilderness there. Them and the Bigfoot, they're just hiding there together. Or maybe that was Bigfoot roaming through the forest shining his flashlight. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it's not even an alien after all. Maybe it's Bigfoot. Hey everyone, what's up and welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. I'm your host, Lindsay Ivan, and today we are looking at the top 10 real alien encounters caught on camera, and it's pretty spooky so far. And if you guys believe in aliens, then make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Also, comment something down below, because I like to read your comments. With that being said, let's dive on into the video.
Just about 4:45, and take a look at this viral video from La Junta in southeastern Colorado. All right, Vivian Gomez wrote on Facebook that her security camera captured this on Sunday morning. There are people on Facebook who say it looks like Dobby from Harry Potter, or a ghost or an alien, or a kid in flip-flops and underwear.
Maybe that. Maybe it's a kid in flip-flops and underwear, like, na-na-na-na-na-na-na. I can't see an alien doing the chicken dance. It has to be a kid. Come on. But also, it does look like Dobby. It's not Dobby.
All the latest shoes, all the best brands, all at DSW.
Dobby. I feel like she said it weird. Anyways, it does look like Dobby from Harry Potter. That is a house elf for sure, okay? He was like, Harry Potter must not come to Hogwarts. Bad Dobby, bad Dobby. And then that was him leaving after the cake got. If you know Harry Potter, then you know. What the hell is that? Ew. Oh, I literally got the shills. I literally got the chills watching that. Like, this alien was trying to be stealthy and hide behind some tombstones, but it wasn't working. Look at its head. That is massive. That's a massive alien head. That is terrifying. That's like the creature from Predator. I'm sorry. I don't like that thing at all. That cemetery needs to be burned down. No, just no.
What is that? Why does it look like that? I don't get it. I mean, why does it look like that? I mean, it doesn't look like a plane. It looks like a saucer. I just don't get it. Can someone help me figure this one out? I mean, if you think that looks like a plane, I just don't get it. I'm looking at it carefully, and of course, you know, I'm driving in the middle of traffic. I'm trying to get as close as I can to it, and I just cannot figure out what the hell I'm looking at.
That is for sure UFO. Like, that literally looks like a spacecraft. Either that, or it's Ron and Harry going to Hogwarts in their flying car. That's also what it looks like. Man, we got the freaking house elf, and now we got, like, this is just confirmation that Hogwarts is real. Hogwarts is real, man. Yo, wizard Harry. Yo, wizard Lindsay. I wish I was. Cadabra. Lindsay Porter. Oh my. That is an alien. That's an alien. Either that or someone is really good at special effects and has a really expensive alien costume. Because it doesn't really make sense to me. Wouldn't an alien like be like, oh snap, there's a human, or something, and make them forget? You know, like the Men in Black, how they have the little flashy light. I feel like an alien just like points at you and then you forget that you saw an alien. Wouldn't you think, like, this is just too casual, him just, oh hey, what's up? Yeah, you can videotape me. Make sure you get this angle. Yeah, I'll just do my slow model walk. You know, like, it doesn't make sense to me. Also, this alien looks like the one from Scooby-Doo. It's with the green humanoid head. It's Scooby-Doo. Anyway.
Check out this video from one of our viewers, Mash Hatai. He said he woke up at about 2:30 this morning, get a drink of water, and this is what he saw in the sky. Certainly caught his eye. He took the video from Kaka'ako and thinks the lights were over Central or West Oahu, hard to tell from his vantage point. As you can see, the two bright lights, and then slowly a third light appears. Hatai believes he saw about 8 to 10 of the lights total.
What the hell? Guys, aliens might be real, and it's scary to say that out loud. How else do you explain this? Like, also let me know in the comments below if you've ever had a creepy alien encounter, because now I want to know. Let me know in the comments below.
Something is in the sky. What is that?
This video was taken by Misitina Sape at 8:26 Tuesday night near Haleakala Avenue in Nanakuli. Not long after, a woman named Mariah spotted the same thing passing over Princess Kahanu Estates.
And then I was like, oh, started calling my husband in because it was all in the garage. I was like, hey, look up there. See what I see. They all said, yeah.
The 38-year-old says she's never really been a believer in UFOs, but the bright blue object had them so intrigued, they jumped in the car and started following it.
I don't know what it was. This one was going so fast.
The journey ended less than 3 miles from where it began, on Farrington Highway in front of the Board of Water Supply building, after the object appeared to drop into the ocean.
Oh my god, do the aliens live in the ocean? Like, was it just returning home? Maybe that's why we haven't found them, because they store their spacecraft underwater in the depths in Mariana's Trench. Love that band. But like, in the depths down there, that's where the aliens are hiding, where we can't go. Wow. Maybe that's where they are. Also, they are brave for following this. They're like, yeah, let's just get in the car and follow this potential UFO that could kill us. Yeah, let's just do it. Typical Tuesday.
Now it is darkened outside. Temperatures are sitting at 61 in Buffalo. We have a northerly wind at 7. Good sleeping weather tonight, folks. What was that? Did anybody see that thing go past? Did we just see a shooting star? Good sleeping weather tonight, folks. What was that? Did anybody see that thing?
Nothing impressive compared to the other ones. That was probably just a shooting star. This guy was just trying to hype it up. He's like, how can I make the news more interesting? Whoa, did everyone see that? No, that wasn't a piece of my dandruff flying by the screen. It was actually UFO. So, I'm famous now. I caught it on camera.
The Pentagon has confirmed a strange and unexpected sight captured by Navy personnel off the coast of California. The video shows flying pyramid-shaped objects hovering above the USS Russell and another warship.
It was leaked by filmmaker Jeremy Corbell. He's also shared 3 images from the USS Omaha showing an unknown spherical craft. The Pentagon has confirmed its unidentified aerial phenomena task force, what a task force that is examining the footage.
That guy got really into the story. I think he believes in aliens. He's like, spherical crafts, yeah, aliens. That's literally what he sounded like. The Pentagon revealed that, like, it was a UFO. But UFO is technically unidentified flying object, so it doesn't mean that it's an ET, it just means that they don't know what the hell it was, which makes me feel better. So maybe it's not aliens, maybe it's just like a drone. I don't know. I'm scared.
Navy pilots say they saw something that defies the limits of known aviation technology. My gosh. They've been popping up around our national security facilities and baffling veteran military personnel.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
And civilians, including commercial airline pilots, are also seeing it.
We just had something go right over the top of us.
Here's a rendering of what an American Airlines pilot reported.
I hate to say this looked like a long cylindrical object. It almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing moving really fast that went right over the top.
Okay, that scares me for a number of reasons. Number one, they said that there was a whole bunch of them flying in the sky. Hello? Are aliens trying to invade Earth now? Like, why can't we just live side by side in peace? Like, what happened to we come in peace? Like, come on, be a good alien. Number two, what if it's like another country spy? Like, I read about this. It could be another country spying on us through these craft type things. I don't know. Either way, it's spooky and I'm scared.
An unidentified aerial phenomena dropped down on the Florida coast. First thing in the morning we drove to the beach to find it. This is what we saw when we got there. We tried to get closer, but the officers on the beach saw us. When we got home, this man was at our house. For days we have seen suspicious vehicles in front of our place. If anyone knows what we should do, please let us know.
You need to move. That's what you should do. A UFO literally crashed down on the beach by your house. That's time to pack up and leave, okay? And literally they're describing like the Men in Black coming there and like, oh, so you see anything suspicious lately? Any ETs, UFOs? Let me know. That is scary, seriously. Pack up and get the heck out of there. Again, wait, hold up. I think I just put 2 and 2 together. I think I just solved this whole alien thing. Again, it crashed down by water. What if this UFO was trying to enter the water? Like I said before, aliens actually live deep down below in the ocean. Again, this kind of proves it. So, just saying. Just saying.
In at number 10. This is probably the earliest reported alien encounter that I've come across on the internet. Back in 1896, a man was traveling to Lodi, California by horse and carriage when all of a sudden his horses got startled by something in the distance. The man said that he can see 3 strange beings on the side of the road. These odd looking creatures were very skinny and stood at about 7 feet tall. They were all bald except they had a velvet soft material that covered their entire body. They spoke in a strange language, and they were holding a weird mineral that emitted a very bright light. The aliens tried to pick up the man, but he was too heavy for them. Eventually they moved away, and they began to float above the ground. The man followed them, and then he said that they floated into a huge, like cigar-shaped spaceship into the air, and he never saw them again. Sounds to me like this guy is either seriously sleep deprived, or he was definitely smoking something. A terrifying alien abduction breaks onto this list at number 9. Amy Rylance probably had the most terrifying moment of her life when she was apparently abducted by an alien back in October 2001. Her friend Petra woke up one night and saw Amy being carried in a sleeping position out through the window on a beam of light to a huge ship. It sounds to me like Petra probably took too many drugs that night, I don't know.
No, I don't drink. I don't take drugs at all.
Ghirardelli chocolate chips makes baking a bite better.
Just a normal person.
Well, there goes my theory. Petra ran to wake up Amy's husband, but by the time they made it back downstairs, Amy was gone. The curtain was ripped and the bushes outside of the window were burnt. They called the police, but they obviously didn't take them seriously because their story sounds absolutely insane. But before you write their story off, listen to this. Amy's husband received a call from a woman who lives 8 hours away. She said that she is with Amy at a hospital who is getting treatment for being dazed and dehydrated.
I have other marks from the tests that they did on me.
What sort of tests?
Just getting kind of DNA samples, and they didn't do anything bad to me, so it was wholly a good experience from my point of view.
No one has any logical explanation as to how she traveled such a far distance in such a short time frame. Amy said she remembers laying on a bed with tall figures leaning over her, and then they were taking a bunch of samples. So I don't know what was going on. And now a river abduction comes in at number 8. In 1979, 2 co-workers were fishing off a pier when they heard a strange buzzing sound. When they took a look around, they saw a mysterious flashing blue lights. A UFO started to come down closer to them, and 3 alien-looking creatures dragged them on board of the spacecraft. Inside, the 2 co-workers were heavily examined for about 20 minutes before they were levitated back to the pier. After the incident, they ran to the police station to report what happened to them.
That was not the place to run, but it was nowhere to run. There was water in the front,
I thought the
water on
baby
the
was like
side.
on my head. All of a sudden I feel this like
When they got a hold of us, I felt a little shock.
Right,
Something, and they must have gave me a shot and
Fucking
relaxed me.
bitch. And then she-
Sorry, we have to stop you for a second because this
and I
must
was
have
trying to
been
go back to sleep,
absolutely
but then they
terrifying.
woke up.
I mean, you're in a UFO with aliens, and what are they doing to you? They're sort of giving you an MRI and examination. That's what you thought was happening.
Of course, no one believed them, and they were just seen as 2 crazy people. And now at number 7, whether you call this one lucky or unlucky, we have the Clayton and Donna Lee abduction. A husband and wife from Texas are claiming that they have been abducted by aliens on multiple occasions, not just one time. They struck multiple times. Donna Lee reported that she was taken while she was pregnant, and she lost her child due to the alien abduction. Maybe they took it? I don't know. Her husband Clayton said that they have been abducted numerous times throughout his life, and he remembers his first abduction happened when he was a little boy at a park. He remembered floating into the sky and seeing stars, and then complete darkness before he passed out. He even has a scar on his side and believes that it was caused by aliens who were attempting to take DNA samples from him.
Did you see the aliens?
Yes.
What did they look like?
What I saw on that particular visit, they were tall, slender, blonde, looked human, but not human, not quite human.
All right.
They didn't really use their voices to talk. For me, about being abducted is they bring me back. I'm here.
Well, maybe they won't someday, Donna. Maybe they'll take you to wherever they live.
They might not, but so far they have. So you can't live in that kind of fear and still have a life.
What was the last time?
Sounds like she enjoys being abducted. I don't know. A scary alien encounter brings us to number 6. Barney and Betty Hill were driving back to their house after they took a vacation in Niagara Falls. While driving, they saw a light in the sky that looked like it was getting closer to them. Eventually, it appeared as a huge shape hovering over their car. Barney got out and used his binoculars to look up above them. He was able to see 11 humanoid figures in shiny black uniforms and capes, and they were all watching them. If that was me, I'd race into my car and drive faster than Van Diesel and get the hell out of there. That's exactly what they they tried to do, but they both said that they experienced a strange buzzing sensation, but they were able to make it back home alive. But they weren't untouched. Their clothes had been torn in strange places, and Betty found a strange pink residue on her dress. She also experienced really intense and vivid dreams about the experience, and she even remembers having skin samples taken from her and injections were put into her belly button. Here's an actual audio clip from a hypnosis session that the couple had after their encounter. Listen to this.
Alright, dear Captain, what is he? You're still asleep, but you can see it all clearly. Looks like a big pancake with windows.
Something very traumatic had happened to them.
The Travis Walton abduction story crashes onto this list at number 5. This story is actually really interesting. Let's travel back to November 1975, where 6 forestry workers in Arizona reported seeing their work colleague Travis Walton blasted through the air in a beam of light that came from a UFO. They called the police and reported him as missing, but during the investigation, the police suspected that the workers actually murdered Travis Walton and that they had disposed of the body. But this is where things get pretty interesting. 5 days later, Travis reappeared and he claimed that he was abducted by aliens. He said that he woke up on a table and he was surrounded by small figures in orange gowns. Maybe he woke up in a prison. I don't know. Maybe there is an answer for that. Well, he said that their skin was very smooth, but it was chalky, and their bald heads were too big for their bodies. He managed to escape from the aliens, but he went into a room that had humans in it, but they were dressed in blue uniforms. This makes it seem like more of a prison. Well, they never spoke to him, but they captured him and put a gas mask on him, and he lost consciousness. But he does remember waking up confused on a strange road in Arizona. A strange alien abduction case is at number 4. Hillary Porter is known as the woman who has been abducted by aliens more times than she can count.
And you believe that you may have something inside your right ear.
Yes, definitely.
Explain.
A little bit like a telescope. It's got 3 sections,
Yes.
very, very minute. Then the rest goes down into my flesh, into the ear.
Okay.
And this thing sometimes comes right out to the very edge. It depends what I'm doing. It seems like it.
So you sometimes feel it moving.
Oh, yeah, you got that feel, and it's slightly longer some days and retracts a tiny bit. And then it was like I was just laying down to go to sleep, and like a little voice came from it and said, "Good night."
Okay, how creepy would that be? The first encounter that she remembers was when she was like 5 years old and she was playing behind her home. She said that she remembers seeing a reptile-looking alien standing in front of her. It had scaly skin, black holes on the nose, and a little mouth. She said that the creature grabbed her arms and pulled her underneath a disc that was located in the fields. They performed a ton of painful tests on her, and then they let her go hours later. She said that she'd been abducted a bunch of times, and she actually suffered from migraines and feels really sick. Sometimes she even wakes up with fresh scars or bruises, or there are bloody marks and stains on her clothes or bed sheets. Okay, a bizarre alien abduction takes us to number 3. Back in October 1957, a man named Antonio Boris claimed that he saw a red star in the sky. The light traveled closer to him until Antonio was able to see that it was a frickin' spaceship. It landed on its 3 legs in the nearby field. Antonio tried to escape on his tractor, and he was grabbed by a strange creature with big blue eyes. He claimed that he was taken aboard of the spaceship, where he was covered by a gel-like substance, and that's so that they can crossbreed. Eventually he was taken off to the ship, and he landed on Earth 4 hours later. He was taken to a hospital where they found burns on his body and lesions. He also felt nauseous and had extremely severe headaches. The doctor later diagnosed him as suffering from radiation sickness. We have another disturbing alien encounter, and this brings us to number 2. Peter Corey remembers one night back in 1988 as the day that he was abducted by aliens. He was laying in his bed when all of a sudden he felt something grab him by his ankle. He instantly felt pins and needles, and then he couldn't feel his body anymore. He was paralyzed. When he woke up, he saw 3 strange-looking creatures around his bed just staring at him. They had gold skin with tiny slits for mouths. They had large black eyes, and he said that they can tell that the aliens communicated telepathically. They inserted a needle into his skull, and then he just blacked out. If you thought that was bad, his second alien encounter was even worse. He said that the female aliens with long white hair appeared over his bed and they tried to mate with him. After the encounter, he saw lots of white hairs on his bed, so he had the DNA analyzed and it was confirmed that this hair was biologically different from human hair. I can't even deal with this story, so let's move on. The abduction of Jesse Long tops this list at number 1. This alien encounter is probably the most popular story out there, so some of you guys might have heard of it. Jesse was just 5 years old when he claimed that he was abducted by aliens for the first time. He said that he was exploring the woods with his brother when all of a sudden they found a round structure in a clearing. A tall, mysterious figure approached the boys and paralyzed them. Jesse said that he remembers being taken to a spacecraft and placed onto a cold table where he felt his legs being poked and prodded by the tall figures. Over the years, Jesse said that he has been abducted many times. He said that he was being constantly experimented on, and they even took sperm samples that they used to crossbreed with a female alien.
Placed on a table, I was presented.
Before a jacket can become a Carhartt, it's got to earn its patch. A Carhartt jacket can't just be durable. It needs...
With a baby, was told, "This is your child."
I don't know about you guys, but that is probably the most disturbing story I've ever heard of. I'm actually so terrified. I really hope that aliens don't come find me if they're actually out there somewhere.
At number 10, we have Jay Frazina in the Austrian caves. If the show Planet Earth has taught me anything, it's that caves are dark and beautiful ecosystems that are teeming with life. And in this video, there's a shot of some of that life that seems to be something I've never seen before. In this video, Jay Frazina is on a little hiking trip in Austria. She's with a whole group, so it seems like she should be pretty safe. Unless you're the one person on the tour who they forget and then you get stuck in the cave and then you're like on the side of a mountain for the rest of your life getting attacked by bears. Well, this mountain tour leads to a cave and then they start to check it out. Caves are really one of the marvels of the world. Just then she's surprised by some sort of creature.
There's someone climbing up the wall. It's an iceman. It's a ghost. Jesus, what is that? Do you see that? Oh my God.
What the hell is that thing? It looks like some sort of lizard man working its way up the wall with ease. It's really far away, so it's super hard to tell what this thing is or how big it is, but it's some sort of beast man living in the cave, climbing up the walls. That's what it looks like. I'm gonna say just let this thing be and don't bother checking it out. At number 9, we have the Risa Tunnels creature. So during World War II, the Germans wanted to build some sort of tunnels in the Owl Mountains, all the way over in Poland. Why did they want to do this? Well, we have no idea. Hitler was into all sorts of weird stuff. He had troops out there looking for magical artifacts. I guess if he won the war, he wanted to be a part-time warlock. Well, some people not so long ago wanted to go check out these tunnels to see what was going on in them, and they were in for a bit of a shock. This group of dudes was walking through when they saw this. Here's another man just running around in caves, I guess. Is there a whole world of things underneath us that we don't know about? That thing did look kinda like a humanoid. It looks like it was running around on 2 legs, but obviously it was moving very fast because by the time they turned the corner to look at it, it was gone. At number 8, we have Satan's Cave. Well, if you're a kid growing up in Minneapolis, I can imagine you get bored really quick, so finding a cave to walk around in probably sounds better than smoking weed in the park with all your friends and complaining about your mom. Now, this group of kids went into some caves underneath Minneapolis in search of what's called Satan's Cave. They end up walking through what kind of looks like a sewer with a bunch of graffiti on the walls and some strange demonic faces that have been carved all over the place. Now, this is super strange, but they want to get to Satan's Cave, so they continue past the demonic Art Deco. Eventually, they get to a tunnel that heads straight down so far you can't see the bottom of it. This could be what they were looking for, but naturally they were like, screw this, and decide to turn back and exit the cave. Probably a smart move. At number 7, we have Train Tunnel Surprise. So what's a tunnel and what's a cave? It's kind of like a tomato-tomato situation. They're both holes in the ground where everything is dark and spooky. So I'm probably gonna throw a few tunnels on this list, and I don't care what you guys say because who cares? It's a tunnel or a cave, it doesn't matter. Well, a bunch of teens thought it would be a good idea to try and walk through a train tunnel in the middle of the night. These tunnels are right next to Odell Lake in Oregon, and usually there's large transport trains moving through them. Well, guess what happened while they were crossing through? A train showed showed up. Yeah, who would have thought of that? A train coming along train tracks? Well, these kids had to jump off the tracks and press themselves against the walls while standing in some gross swamp water so the train didn't run them over. Luckily, nobody was hurt. Alright guys, at number 6 we have lost. Okay, getting lost in a cave is one thing. You could probably last for at least a few days until people found you. But getting lost in a cave underwater while you're free diving, you have minutes before your air runs out. Well, Kodiak Moraski was doing some sport fishing while free diving. He was chasing down a little lobster and then got a little too far into a cave. This got him all turned around and he couldn't find his way out. He started to panic, but luckily he was able to find which way he came in. I guess the scary encounter in this cave was almost drowning to death.
You're fine, just breathe off the rig, Tina.
I can't get some.
Put the regulator in your mouth.
Wow, I don't know what's going on.
At number 5, we have Nick in the Caves. Okay, this one has got a lot going on. This starts with a Russian YouTuber named Nick. He's got a channel where he explores creepy caves and places like that. On one episode, he decides to explore some old Russian caves with some friends. While exploring, he gets into a section that is so tight he has to take his backpack off and leave it behind. And then he gets separated from his friends. He explores a bit without his stuff and then comes to some strange sections. There's a part with a jug, it's set up to catch water, but it's like, who is that for? This is in a cave in the middle of nowhere. Eventually he's freaked out and he heads back the way he came. He gets back to his backpack and he sees that it's been opened and his stuff is scattered everywhere. Who or what did this? While he's collecting his things, you can see a pair of eyes in the reflection of the camera. He doesn't see this until he reviews the footage, but you can see these dark eyes peering at him through the darkness. It's very creepy. My hair is standing up just talking about it. At number 4, we have big ol' spider. Alright, this one is simple. Mikael Krosberg was in a cave in Laos and then he found a giant spider. He said it was as big as a pizza. That's super gross. This thing is so big it looks like it could eat a pug. Honestly, to be number 4 on the list, that's all you need. You don't need to be something supernatural or like some demon from another dimension. It just needs to be a super gross spider because I think they're disgusting and I don't want anything to do with them. That's how you get number 4 on this list. At number 3, we have the Cave of Screaming Terror. Okay, right off the bat, you call a place the Cave of Screaming Terror, and I'm not going to visit. I don't think anyone in their right mind would think this is a fun place to check out. While you're at it, why don't you go check out the House of the Soul Suckers, or the Forest of Getting Kicked in the Nuts? Well, this one dude went for a swim in the cave because most of the cave is submerged, so if you're gonna go inside, you have to swim. And he doesn't even bring a boat to go in. He's just straight up swimming in it. That's asking for some cave creature to pull you down and rip your insides out. The dude swimming was Donnell Buckley, and while he was going for his nice little float through the cave, he started to hear this. I don't know if that's a bird or whatever that could be, but whatever it is, Donnell didn't want to figure out where it was coming from, and he beelined it out of there. Good idea. At number 2, we have MJ in the Cave. The ghost of Michael Jackson was attacking people in a cave and it was all caught on camera. Nah, I'm just lying to you guys, because that's fun for me. We're not talking about the famous pop star Michael Jackson. We're talking about the YouTuber Mark Johnson, of course. He was exploring the Cave of the Winds in Colorado when several paranormal encounters happened. First, we have this weird noise that kind of sounds like a ghost farting or dropping a massive turd.
Probably kick on the spirit box here in a minute and that other room.
Do you think you still have to crap in the afterlife? Do you believe in ghost poops? Please, let us know your thoughts in the comments. It's not long after this that we see another paranormal encounter. An orb. I don't know much about ghosts because I don't spend my time watching Ghost Hunters. I've got better things to do, like literally anything else. But those orbs are supposed to be ghosts walking around doing like ghost stuff, like slamming doors and watching you sleep. Okay, you guys, we're on to number 1 now. And the number 1 spot on our list goes to an account from a park-wearing dog. Oh, he's so cute. You guys have probably seen this dog all over the internet. His name is Tret, he's a pit bull, and he can climb trees and do all sorts of cool stunts. Well, one day his owner was taking this good old boy out for a walk when he came across an old well. A well is basically a cave, it's just like sticking in a different direction. You guys know, wells are still in the theme of caves, especially if they're old and abandoned. Tret's owner hears something weird coming out of the well, so he decides to take a cool little video, and then we see this happen.
В колодце что-то шипит. Может, ужик?
What the hell is that? It definitely doesn't look like something that should be hanging out in a forest. It looks like something that came out of the gates of hell. But let me know what you guys think of this thing in the comments, and let me know if you thought this one was deserving of the number 1 spot.
Starting us off with number 10 is 17 Hours. This sort of reminds me of the book called Touching the Void, where these 2 guys are climbing this glacier or mountain, and something goes wrong and one of them has to cut the rope and let the other one loose, otherwise they were both gonna die, and the one who gets cut off lands in this crevice and actually survives. Either way, this one was shared by Reddit user Beach Knoll, whose grandpa had just gotten back from World War II and decided exploring was his new hobby. Him and his friends went into Mammoth Cave despite it being on privately owned property. Laws were a lot more lax back then, clearly. Either way,
the holidays are here. Take in the magic.
Happy holidays!
while in there with their flashlights, they had a group of people somewhere else in the cave because of all the echoing. They quickly cut the lights since the sounds didn't seem very friendly, and they waited. His grandpa and friends went deeper into the cave to lose them, and imagine this level of darkness where you can't even see your own hand in front of you. It's like a black hole with just no light coming in. They then spent 17 hours in there hiding, and the only thing getting them through it was one of their friends saying, "We didn't survive that to die in here," obviously referring to the war. And no, you didn't, my friend, so you're gonna survive that. Coming in at number 9 is a secret society. This one's from Reddit user Ludovico Specs and was about the basement that was under his college language lab. Turns out the place was turned into some sort of secret society in the 1800s, and the whole building used to belong to them at one point. It had hospital lights all over it, which were always just very creepy. There's an inch of water on the floor too, but the weirdest part was the main room. It had vaulted ceilings supported by pillars that had stone skulls mounted on top of them. On top of the skulls were metal spikes, which is just sus as well. Why would the secret society need just skulls on poles? It's weird. The front room also had this also with the backstage area that had a chair with a bunch of questions written on it, like were they a secret society or a cult? Now the user thought his discovery was pretty cool, so he came back the next night with some of his friends to show them. The night after that, he tried coming back again, but it had been mysteriously padlocked. No one wanted him snooping, evidently. And number 8, we have the closet. This one would have sent me running for the hills and was shared by You See The Thing Is on Reddit. The police had confiscated this house from a biker gang a few years back, and it had sat empty ever since. So the user, who works at an insurance company, had to go to the house and assess its damage. We already know insurance people always screw you over, so okay. Now while in there, he described the house as pretty normal, you know, white walls, red plywood flooring, the door locks weren't rusted yet, so it was all pretty good, pretty normal. But then they opened the linen closet to see deep scratch marks all over the inside and dents like someone was trying to escape from inside of there. The worst part was that right on the back wall was this red splatter that had been painted over but was still very visible. The user's thoughts went to the person finally escaping to then somehow getting which is beyond screwed up, but I mean the scratch marks, the dents, like it makes sense. Filling at number 7 slot is Choo Choo. Now this one was shared by Reddit user Hi Dingy Doo, who shared that he used to walk along this old abandoned railroad line just to observe some wildlife, which sounds really peaceful actually, and I'm sure it was until this encounter. Over the years, the metal tracks rusted and were taken out, and all the equipment was also taken away. The whole thing became overgrown with shrubs and weeds, and so to an outside perspective, you never really would have been able to tell it had been a train track ever. Either way, one night the user went walking there with a friend, and out of nowhere they hear a voice saying choo choo. They turned around to see this old smiling man crouched in the bushes just staring at them from the dark shadows. Like, who the hell are you, bro? Like, I'm just trying to vibe and observe some wildlife. Like, who the frick are you? Oh, hell no! I would literally just kicked the old man. I'm really not as violent as you guys think I am, but like, I will kick people if I have to. I'm not even worried about it. Now, number 6 are the cats. This one makes my blood boil and was shared by Redditor Jetstream Wolf 12. They shared that there's this one hotel in their hometown that's super run down and that everyone just kind of breaks into fun. So they and 2 friends decided to crawl into the basement from a side entrance. Initially, all they saw was graffiti, but as they went upstairs, they saw blood stains all over the floor. Was someone murdered there? Find out in a second. Now they see a bunch of dead cats that have been dragged around this room and come to the realization it's their blood. That was all they had to see before running the frick out of there. Like, no.
Salud.
No. That would have been me before some serial killer in the back just like hits me like she was annoying. Coming in at number 5 is the ice plant. This one was shared by Redditor Digital is 303, who was very into urban exploration as a teenager. See, I was more into Gossip Girl and reading than I was exploring abandoned buildings, but to each their own. I never judge outwardly. Now either way, there was this old ice plant near the user's house that had burned down 35 to 30 years beforehand, which is very ironic. You're an ice plant and you burned it down. Bit of shocking behavior. Either way, the place was super overgrown, and as the user was exploring the mangled concrete and rebar, everything seemed just normal and old and burned. Disappointed, the user went home, but a few days later they hear that a corpse was pulled out of the plant by the police. The user had literally walked past a dead body and had no idea. Like, dude, open your eyes or your nose. How do you not smell a dead corpse? Apparently they smell like proper shit. Because your nose blocked that day, bro? What's going on? At number 4 is the cleanup. Abandoned mental hospitals are one place you will just absolutely never find me. Too much pain and suffering has been endured in these places, especially from the way they used to be treated. So this one comes from Reddit user Slothcopter, who said they explored this abandoned mental hospital that opened up sometime in the 1800s. They opened this freezer inside to find mold all over it and inside of it, and in the past they had used it to put dead bodies in there. So did those bodies mold? Did the mold come from something else? I don't know. Now in another hallway they found the word blood written in blood since they had it tested, and the word high written in spray paint, which clearly meant others had explored this place before this person did, which is not surprising since urban explorers will literally do everything except like meth. Either way, the person decided to visit the place again a few days later, and when they did, the blood was mysteriously gone, but the high was still there. So who is coming in and out of this place and leaving messages in blood and then cleaning them up? Filling at number 3 slot is the Sprinter. This one comes from
on with this lovely weather, so playtime together with
you. In his town with a few of his friends. It was really hard to get into since the whole thing was boarded up, but they managed to climb up a pipe on the side of the school and get in through a window. They checked out the basement first that had been flooded, so it was very eerie just watching the stairs disappear underwater. They then checked out the gym, and as they were leaving it, they heard single footsteps coming from the other side of the gym door. Now that scared the shit out of them since this person or thing was blocking their roof exit, trajectory. The person sounded like they were just periodically walking around and then stopping, not even properly exploring. There was no light where they were coming from, which spooked the group even more. The group decided to hide out for a bit, and after seeing no one in the hallways, they decided to make a break for the roof exit door. As soon as they did, they heard someone sprinting after them, not even that far behind them. They ran the hell up those stairs and managed to get out without getting caught or killed by whoever was in there. Bro, why were you in there alone, you creep? Now, at number 2 is quitting your job. This one was effed and came from Redditor Takausin, who said this happened around 13 years ago. As an electrician, him and his partner were sent out to this restoration project for a house that was built in the early 1900s. And when they got there, they were told some info about the house, like how it had 2 owners since it was built, and how the last one was this old woman who passed away a decade prior, and there was no one left in her family that could take it. So it was auctioned off to this young couple who wanted to modernize the whole place, which is very understandable. So they got to work installing things and had to open the attic hatch to find out it was very cramped as hell up there, and so only the tiniest worker could go up and replace the intake cable. Now the user was the smallest, obviously, so he went up there and could smell this old people smell, so he just assumed it was like her death smell, but it kept getting stronger. When he got up there fully, the stench was awful, and when he turned his flashlight on, to the left of him, he saw 5 cat carcasses, some partially eaten by insects or whatever eat corpses, and the others were just bones and rotten skin. The dude had just had his lunch break, so he threw up on the spot and actually quit his job after this project was done. That's scarring. And finally, animal 1 is the asylum. This one actually scared me a bit in my seat, and it's not even like I sit at my desk in a room alone. There's people around me. I was just still scared because I'm small. Shared by Reddit user Daddy's Little Screamer, when she was 16, she and her friend decided to explore the abandoned asylum grounds near her house. Firstly, if I lived in a house near asylum grounds, I would have forced my parents to move. That's not happening from any angle. There was this one tower there that had been locked for what seemed like 5 ever, but that day it wasn't, and at the top of the tower there was a light on, and they both heard a dog barking. Thinking a dog maybe accidentally got itself stuck in the tower, they looked up and were shocked. There's a silhouette in the window for sure, but it was a person's silhouette, not a dog's. The person was the one barking. Without even going into the tower, the girls ran away, and all they heard was this person call out "bye now" in a creepy sing-song voice. At number 8, we have the Jefferson Barracks Badass, and yeah, that really is what people call him. Located in Missouri, the Jefferson Barracks is one of the most haunted military bases in the world, and I'm not even surprised considering how much death has taken place there. I mean, it used to be a military hospital, then it was a graveyard, and it was even a military staging area at one point, so there's a lot going on here. Either way, over the years, countless soldiers have been stationed there, and many have left their posts completely because of one specific ghost. The barracks ghost was a guard who was shot during a munitions raid. He's extremely aggressive, like straight up just out to get you, and he actually challenges soldiers to fight him. Despite literally having a bullet in his head, he's out here just ready to square up, and soldiers are terrified of him. And if his presence isn't bad enough, the jail cells there are also haunted by disembodied voices, there's floating apparitions, and shadow people. Freaking great. Do they prepare you for that during training? Like, okay, your real human target is over there, but always watch your back for that.
I know I've got a comeback in me, and I'm going to make it count, because I'm worth the investment it takes to earn a degree that I'm proud of. I'm worth the work it takes to get an education employers respect. I'm not just going back to school. This is it. My chance. My opportunity. I'm coming back and moving forward with Purdue Global. Start your comeback today at purdueglobal.edu.
Freaking ghosts who could get you too. Out you go. No. Filling on number 7 slot are the 6 Devils. Having taken place back in 1836, this is actually one of the first ever military ghost encounters ever reported. General Juan Jose Andrade sent a group of troops to burn the soldiers that had died at the Alamo. Hours later, when the men returned, they were pale and shaken up and refused to go near the Alamo ever again. Now, they claimed it was guarded by 6 devils, and that burning the bodies felt like being in hell itself, which is a pretty bold statement. People who have gone there since have reported seeing boys walking around in period clothing, hearing hooves on the ground when clearly there are no horses around. And not even including the war deaths that took place there have been multiple in the area as well. Other people have claimed seeing a man and young boy jumping off the Alamo mission to their death, but then vanishing into thin air. Where did they go? Where did they come from? Cotton Eye Joe. Now at number 6 are the voices. This one's from Reddit user BloodSoup03, who said he was stationed in Iraq back in 2006, and it was his turn for guard duty. He was stationed in a massive compound area called Camp Baharia, in an area where Saddam Hussein's sons apparently women. Apparently, it's not confirmed. Now, the guard tower he was in was 2 stories high, and you had to use this metal spiral staircase to get up there. One night, halfway through his post, him and his friends suddenly heard this loud pair of footsteps sprinting up the stairs. Taken off guard, both of them grabbed their helmets, got their weapons ready, and waited. After a few minutes, he went around the corner to find Absolutely no one. Now he made his way downstairs and outside the tower to make sure no one was around, and no one was. There wasn't even any new vehicle outside that could have brought someone, and they didn't understand how they didn't see the person approach or even hear them open the tower door. Just wasn't making sense. Either way, he went back up to his partner, who was pale as hell, looking like he'd seen the devil himself. He asked the user what all the commotion was about and where the woman was. The user was like, "What are you talking about? What woman?" His comrade replied, saying when he had gone downstairs he had heard a scuffle between the user and a woman and heard a blood-curdling scream for help and then silence. The user went white and was like, "I didn't hear any of that. I didn't even see a woman." So, could it have been one of those women that Saddam Hussein's sons? Who knows? Possibly. Possibly. Coming in at number 5 is Brother Bear. So this story is actually from World War I veteran Will Bird's memoir, Ghosts Have Warm Hands. Now Will's brother was a war veteran as well who had died 2 years before he wrote the book. In this one, Bird said he was napping in a sheltered area when he suddenly woke up and saw the ghost of his brother Steve smiling down at him. He said Steve smiled at him and put his hands over his mouth as Will started screaming out of joy. What a nice story. This one does have a happy ending, don't worry guys. Now he then told Will to get his gear and follow him. 5 minutes later, at a new spot, Will saw the place he was napping beforehand be blown to pieces by enemy fire. So despite being dead, Steve's ghost saved Will's life, and that's a true MVP brother if I ever saw one. Like, hello, Steve, you're doing great, sweetie. At number 4 is Hellman's Observation Point Rock. Locals and soldiers in Afghanistan alike believe the area is cursed and haunted by tragedies of the past. When Russia occupied Afghanistan, Point Rock was the place where Russian soldiers were executed by Afghani Mujahideen. And ever since then, when Marines are posted there, they have reported hearing voices speaking in Russian time and time again, even though there are never any Russians in the area. Lance Corporal said the place sucks and that you could stick a shovel in any part of the area and you'd come up with bones. And it's not just Russian afterlife that the troops are scared of. Guards there have dealt with the voices of people crying, phantom gunfire, lights that appear and disappear with no source, and a little ghost girl that tries to lure troops into an isolated area to help her. And God knows what she does with them after that. I do have a few ideas. They're not nice. Don't follow that girl. Filling our number 3 slot are the eyes. This one's from Redditor Mace Windex, who was stationed at Fort Carson in 2015 during the Warhorse Strike. He said it was the last day of a 2-week field problem and all the troops were pretty tired, wanting cigarettes or coffee or something, and just ready to get the hell out of there. That night, they arranged a tactical movement to Gate 20 to secure a target. As they went off, the user was at the back of the line to make sure no one got left behind. They were in this valley, and at the bottom of it there was a stream, and as soon as they crossed the stream, this disgusting stench just hit them. And it wasn't a skunk, a lot worse. The user said it could only be associated with the odor of meat gone bad. And it wasn't uncommon to find dead animals in the area, but since they'd been training there for 2 weeks, they would have found whatever it was already, and with the pungency of the smell, they wouldn't have ignored it, and I quote, "It was like some advanced decomposition." I feel like that's something I'd say. Either way, the user went on to say he usually liked being alone on his patrols and had been followed in the past. And when you get that gut feeling you're being watched, you just know. The user decided to look back around them just to make sure, and through his night vision he saw a pair of gleaming eyes in the trees. But as soon as he saw the first pair, he saw another, and it was standing at like 7 feet tall. So what the hell did those eyes even belong to? The user freaked out, but none of the troops had any live ammo, so they couldn't investigate, so they just got the F out of there ASAP Rocky. As would anyone. I would do the same. I wouldn't be there to begin with. That was a rough one. That was a rough one, not gonna lie guys. Now at number 2 is the sailor. This one's from Reddit user Isa, who was a newly reported sailor, and this happened while he was in the engine room of a submarine while on mid-watch. The engine room lower level of the submarine had many narrow passages throughout it, and all of them passed through the center. He came down one of the ladders and saw someone 15 feet in front of him walk and then turn the corner. And he was 100% sure he saw him. I mean, he'd heard his footsteps, he saw the back of his head. It seemed pretty damn real. But there were problems with this sighting. Firstly, the person he saw was wearing utilities, which made no sense since utilities had been phased out of use 3 years prior. Secondly, there was only one other person awake at the time, and he was the one waiting at the top of the ladder for the user. Initially, he didn't want to mention the incident and blamed it on sleep deprivation, but 4 months later, he got his closure. The user was out at sea on a different submarine with a fellow sailor who had served on his previous ship as well. The man told the user the story of a sailor who had committed an engine room lower level in his utilities a decade beforehand. Great, don't we just love seeing dead sailors when we're new on the job? We love that. Love it. Great first day at work. And finally, at number 1 is the Black Smoke. So this story comes from Jerry Aberdeen, who was stationed at an air base in Afghanistan when this event took place. Military personnel were patrolling the area as always, and they all spotted a large group of angry people coming towards the base trying to ambush it. They started climbing the walls of the station, and all hands were called to defend the base. They opened fire, and many people were killed, but one man who died let out something. Aberdeen said as soon as the man was shot and fell to the ground, this plume of black smoke started pouring out of him, and troops assumed it was a suicide vest that had malfunctioned. But the smoke wasn't disappearing, it was materializing into human form. The smoke person was now standing in front of these troops, and all of them remembered it having red glowing eyes and a weirdly deformed mouth. It smiled at the troops before turning around to run, but then sort of vanished into thin air after a few steps. The troops were shook. They had no idea what to think, what to feel. Should they be shooting at the smoke? Like it was just too much. It was all too much.
We start off with Richard Snowden. He was kicking around in the 1700s. One night, him and 3 buddies were having a boys' night. The place was a banger. They were having an intense game of cards. The 4 of them were having such a good time that one of them exclaimed, "I hope this night will never end." But just then, there was a knock at the door. It was a companion of one of the men they've been partying with, and he needed his friend's help immediately. There was an emergency. This obviously bummed out everyone else who was at the party. They're like, and one of the guys said, "We would keep playing with the devil himself, even if he took your place." The man from the party and his companion left, and then a few moments later, there was another knock at the door. It was a wandering traveler who asked if he could come in. When he saw the men playing cards, he asked if he could join. Everyone was stoked because it means they could start ripping cards again. But this wandering traveler seemed to have just the best luck, almost supernatural luck, winning hand after hand until he cleaned everyone out. After everyone was broke, the traveler went to leave, and all the men caught a scent of brimstone. Was this just a ringer that came in to play these poor losers, or was something more supernatural afoot? I like the idea that the devil just came in and was like, yeah, I'm just gonna take everyone's money in peace. That's super funny. Number 9, the basement scratching. This one was posted anonymously on Reddit. Ooh. The story starts with a girl who's having a bunch of friends over for a night of drinking, movies, and someone decides to pull out a Ouija board. Hot tip for never encountering demons: don't play with Ouija boards. They're all having some fun with the board, asking it questions, messing around. Typical Ouija hijinks. Not long after that, everyone goes home. That night, the girl is woken up by scratching coming from her basement. She thinks it's probably mice and she tries to go back to sleep. But then the scratching turns into knocking, and then a loud bang. She's startled, jumps out of bed, grabs her phone, runs and locks herself in the bathroom, and she keeps the lights off in the bathroom just in case it's someone breaking in. She doesn't want them to know where she is. But just then, she feels a hand grip down on her shoulder and someone whisper, "Hello?" She wraps the story up with saying she was up all night with all the lights on in the house, and the next day she moved some of her stuff into her brother's house and never went back. Number 8, the Pale Man. Now we have Alex. Alex says back in 2003 he was working late night at a bar. It was getting close to closing time on a pretty slow night, so
at Rite Aid, we know your yoga routine is more than a workout. It's a ticket to cheat day. That your eye drops do more than soothe eyes. They keep you scrolling all night. So from your bedtime routine to your wake-up rituals, it means more at Rite Aid.
So everyone had cleared out except for one guy. He didn't recognize him, but the guy did seem pretty drunk. When he told the guy that they were closing soon, he asked him if he would walk him to the bus stop just outside of the bar. He was worried about getting mugged. Alex was feeling nice that day, so he was like, yeah, no problem. He helped the man out of the bar, and just before they got to the stop, the man grabbed him by the arm. His hand was so cold it felt like it was burning his skin. And then the barfly turned to him and his eyes were pitch black. Alex was so stunned he couldn't move. Then the man said, "Maryland is rotting." He pushed the man down, ran back into the bar, and Marilyn was the name of his wife who had recently passed away. Ooh. Number 7, the forest. Sometimes when you're a kid, your parents tell you not to do something, and sometimes you're like, I'm gonna do it anyways. Well, sometimes you should listen. This encounter comes from Charlie when he was 13. He went up to the cabin with his father. It was just gonna be a weekend next to lake, having fun with your old pa. But his dad had one rule about going out at night: don't venture into the forest. So what did our young friend do right after his dad fell asleep? Well, he went to go check out the forest. He says at first it was actually quite beautiful. The moon was big and lighting up all the trees. Then he heard a noise, not an animal, but a laugh. He looked deep into the forest and saw a tall, slim figure, not like an animal at all, but like a stretched out, lanky man and rigid. He couldn't make out anything on its face except for a grin that shined in the moonlight. Then it reached out its hand and motioned to him with his finger to come over. He obviously ran the hell out of there. He said he never told his dad because he didn't want to get in trouble, but he never forgot what he saw. Number 6, witches. Sometimes you start doing something because it's trendy, and then you get halfway up a climbing wall and you realize you're afraid of heights. Well, Danielle got too deep into something in a similar way. She read a book on witches and thought it'd be fun to join her local coven. I think we should start with knitting. Maybe knitting before witchcraft. Anyways, she got with them, and after a few months she got invited to her first seance. So she went, and it was in a creepy basement, as it should be, and when she got there, there was someone who was tied down and sleeping. She didn't recognize the girl, but she followed along with the ritual because peer pressure is very strong, guys. The chanting and the ceremony got more and more intense, and then everything stopped. They untied the girl and then sat in a circle around her. The girl who was previously tied up sat up, looked at Danielle, and then spit what looked like blood all in her face. This was enough to push her over the edge, so she ran out of the basement and never went back to the coven. She said sometimes she had vicious nightmares that she was giving birth to a baby that had claws, fangs, and rotting skin. Super gross. Number 5, sleep paralysis. You can thank YouTube for this story from a guy who said he would get sleep paralysis and often see a reoccurring creature. He said it had a human-like body but skin that looked hard and sharp. It had no teeth and very little hair, with long nails that looked like they haven't been washed in months, and instead of eyes, just dark pits. Now, it's not uncommon for people to hallucinate during sleep paralysis, but he said this creature would tell him things, horrible things, that hadn't happened yet, but were going to happen eventually. And then eventually, they did start happening. Now he can't sleep without the aid of sleeping pills. This is terrifying. 4, the new house. You move into a new home and you get inspected and they say everything's good, but little did you know there's a demon in the house. This happened to JD when him and his family moved into a new home, and then weird things started happening. Stuff would go missing, things would move at night, sometimes he would hear laughing. It was just unsettling. It was unsettling but not terrible until one night he was woken up by his bedroom door slamming shut. He sat at the edge of his bed and he saw it. It looked like a decrepit old woman with flesh falling off her bones and pointed teeth. This thing let out a scream so loud he closed his eyes in fright, but when he opened his eyes, the thing was gone. They moved out of the house not long after that. Number 3, the graveyard. I got another hot tip for you guys. Don't go to graveyards at night. Nothing good has ever happened in a graveyard at night. But Monica was grieving her recently dead mother and couldn't sleep, so she thought taking a drive down to the burial site might put her at ease. When she got there, it seemed like no one was there. She walked up to her mom's spot and she stood there reminiscing for a moment. Then she saw a man in a dark coat walking towards her about 50 feet away. She was scared, so she started to rush back to her car. For a moment, she looked back and caught a glimpse of the man's eyes. They were glowing yellow. She started sprinting to her car. She got in and sped off. Once she was far enough away, she pulled over to gather herself. Then she felt it. It felt like something dark was close. She looked in the rearview mirror and saw the glowing eyes from inside the car. She then looked back and there was nothing. She then sped off again until she got home. Then, when she got to her apartment, there was a note right on her door. The note was unmarked, but it read, "See you soon." That is terrifying. Number 2, little brother. Blake wrote this one out on 4chan. He said that when he was a kid, he would often hear footsteps at night, but he was so young that he didn't know that this was unusual. One night, the footsteps were so loud that they woke him up. He was curious, so he went to go inspect them. He followed the noise until he came across a boy sitting with his back to him crying. He asked if the boy was okay, and then the boy turned to look at him, and he had no face. He was terrified and ran into his parents' room screaming. Nothing like this ever happened again, but he never forgot that night. Number 1, Home Alone. As I stated before, don't mess around with Ouija boards. This was submitted by Rebecca on Reddit. She said one night she was home alone bored, so she started playing around with a Ouija board her brother had got her. While using the board, she asked if anyone was there. It slid to yes. It was spooky, but she also found it kind of exciting. She asked for the name and she got a series of symbols that didn't make sense. She then asked if they were nice and it slid to no. This time she was freaked out, so she took her hands off the board and then the toggle started moving on its own to spell out "Let's play" and then flew off the board. Then banging on the windows and all around the house started. The lights started flickering on and off, and she said she felt like she was choking on something. She ran into the bathroom, locked the door, and then spit black sludge into the sink. Terrified, she looked up into the mirror and didn't see her face, but what she describes as the devil's grin. After this, she fainted. Rebecca said her family found her on the bathroom floor. She later went for psychiatric treatment, but all tests came back to say that she had no mental disorders. So who knows what really happened.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have The Illusionist. This is said to be a true story from Juarez in Mexico of when the devil appeared to a man there. It happened in 1942 and was later told by his son before spreading around the world. On a summer's day, the man went down to see the circus in town with his father and his brother. The shows weren't very interesting that year, but they met two girls and went off to hear some live music. Suddenly, they were stopped by a short man in a dinner jacket. He claimed that he was the greatest illusionist in the world, but that the circus turned him down because his act was so terrifying. The owner had accused him of being the devil. This got the man and his brother's attention. The stranger said they could see the amazing trick at his home. They followed the stranger back and sat on a sofa in his trailer. The stranger extended his arm and began running his left hand over his gloved right hand, all while chanting a strange tongue. He asked if they were ready. They said yes. He pulled off the glove and everyone screamed. To their horror, the hand was now a skeleton hand, still wiggling its fingers. The man's brother got up to take a closer look. The stranger grabbed the top of his head with his bony hand and said he was now really going to show them something. At this point, they all ran and screamed. The man stopped and looked back. The stranger was standing on top of the steps and laughing at them. On the ground was a wooden plank with long nails pointing up. The stranger jumped off the step and landed right onto a nail. Blood poured out of his boot, but he continued to laugh. The man just stared at him, transfixed, until his brother grabbed him and they both ran away. They knew it was the devil. They felt it was the devil, and they say it was a day they can never forget. Next up at number 9 now, we have Robert Johnson. He's one of the most legendary blues musicians of all time, whose music went on to influence other musicians for generations. Aside from his music, folks may tell you another story about Robert Johnson, that he met the devil. They say that one day Robert was walking down the highway on a cool October night when he came to a crossroads. A tall man was sitting there on a log by the side of the road. He said that he knew Robert and asked him if he wanted to play the guitar like nobody had ever played it before, to be the king of the Delta blues. He said yes, he wanted that. The devil warned him though that although his music will enchant the crowds, his soul will now belong to him. This is not just any crossroads, the devil said. I put this X here for a reason, and I've been waiting on you. Then the devil possessed him. Robert's eyes rolled upwards in their sockets. The moon pierced his eyes. Then he looked at the man straight in the eyes and said, "Step back, devil man. I'm going to Rosedale. I am the blues." Now, whether or not you believe that story, Robert Johnson was an incredible blues musician. I was actually listening to him as I wrote this script, and he also died under mysterious circumstances involving some sort of poison when he was 27 years old, which historians are still trying to fully understand. Moving on to number 8 now, we have St. Dunstan. He was a 10th century hermit who lived in Glastonbury in England. One day, a mysterious stranger approached him and asked that St. Dunstan use his skill in smithing to make a chalice for him, a sort of holy cup, if you like. Dunstan agreed and set to work. As he worked away though, he saw the stranger change form from man to woman, from woman into a child, flowing from one to the next. Dunstan realized that this was the devil, but he tried to act as if he hadn't noticed. Then, when the chance presented itself, he grabbed a pair of red-hot tongs from the fire and pierced them into the stranger's nostrils, causing the devil to cry out in pain and flee. A while later, the devil returned, this time as a vagrant street performer playing the harp. Dunstan grabbed him by the leg this time and began shoeing him. Then he nailed a horseshoe to his cloven foot. The devil screamed in agony and agreed to be released on the condition that he never approach a house with a horseshoe hanging over the doorway ever again. This gave birth to the legend that horseshoes are lucky and even keep the devil at bay. Moving on to number 7 now, we have the Devil's Violinist. That's the name given to Niccolo Paganini. Some even say he was the greatest violin player who ever lived. He was a child prodigy in Genoa, Italy, who struggled to find a teacher that he couldn't surpass immediately. By the age of 15, he was touring solo. Within a year, he had a breakdown and succumbed to alcoholism. He didn't reappear in the public eye until the age of 22, but this time he was somehow better than ever. They say he was able to play 3 octaves across 4 strings and a handspan. Now, you don't actually have to know what that means, but it's thought to be nearly impossible, even by today's standards. He was a striking sight in his performances. Very tall and very thin, with hollow cheeks, very long fingers, pale skin, and flaming eyes with thin lips that held a sardonic smile. To top it all off, he wore all black for his performances. Soon, rumours began to circulate that his violin was the devil's instrument, that Paganini had actually made a deal with the devil. Some say they saw the devil help Paganini play. Others say that they once saw lightning bolts hit the end of his bow during a performance. When he died, he turned down his last rites from a priest. The official account is that he did this because he thought he wasn't going to die, but others say it was because he feared the blessing of a priest. Coming in at number 6 now, we have The Richest. This is the story of Jonathan Moulton. He was an American general who helped the US win the Revolutionary War. He's also known for trying to trick the devil, apparently. Despite being very rich, Moulton wanted more. One night, sitting in front of his fireplace, Moulton said out loud that he'd sell his own soul to the devil to be the richest man in the province. Not want to miss out on the offer of a soul, the devil appeared right there and said that he would make the deal and fill Moulton's boots with gold coins every single month. For a while, Moulton enjoyed finding the gold in his boots every month, but soon he wanted more, and he hatched a cunning plan. He cut the bottom of his boots off and put them on top of the chimney. The devil filled up the boots, but eventually noticed the shoes never filled. The coins were just tumbling down the chimney where Moulton was practically swimming in them. As revenge, the devil took back all the gold he'd ever given Moulton. He burned down the house and kept his soul in hell for eternity. Legend says that years after his death, Moulton's grave was opened, and instead of a skeleton, they found a coffin filled with gold. Next up at number 5 now, we have Saint Pio. We talked about Saint Duncan earlier, but he wasn't the only saint on this list who claims to have had a run-in with a devil. Pio was also known for his frequent and often violent battles with the devil. On one occasion, a local friar found him lying bloodied and bruised in his room. When Pio came around, he said that he had been attacked by either Satan or one of his demons, which had left him with 3 broken ribs. On one night in 1906, Pio heard footsteps coming from the next room, which he thought was his friend, Friar Anastasio. He went to the window and tried to call out to invite him in for a chat. He found that his voice had gone though, out of nowhere. He just couldn't speak. Then he noticed a large black hound sitting menacingly on a nearby window ledge. In his account of what happened next, Pio said, "I saw the big dog enter through the window and there was smoke coming from its mouth. I fell on the bed and I heard a voice from the dog that said, 'Him it is him.' While I was still on the bed, the animal jumped up to the ledge of the window, then to the roof and disappeared." His colleagues believed that the devil was targeting him because of all the exorcisms that Pio had performed over the years. They said that on many occasions, before leaving the body of a possessed man, they would actually hear the devil shout, "Padre Pio, you give us more trouble than Saint Michael. Do not steal the bodies from us and we will not bother you." Next up at number 4 now, we have Johann Georg Faust. A 1507 book titled Historia and Tale of Dr. Johannes Faustus tells the story of Johannes Faustus, who allegedly met the devil. According to the book, he was a German scholar who, quote, "loved what ought not to be loved." It says that he craved nothing more than forbidden knowledge. One day, Johannes traveled to a crossroads in a forest and summoned the devil. He stood inside a protective circle and performed an ancient and unholy ritual. Soon, lightning came crashing down, and the entire forest was destroyed. Demons emerged in three forms. First, a dragon, then as a man made of fire, and then as an old monk. After hours of conversation, Faust agreed to trade his soul so that his every question would be answered for 24 years. He told himself that things would be fine because, in his words, the devil might not be so black as they used to paint him, nor hell so hot as the people say. Well, the story ends by saying that he was wrong and people were right. It claims that when Johannes died, his soul went straight to hell, where he spent an eternity of torture, wishing for death, but finding that even death had forsaken him. Moving on to number 3 now, we have the Signed Pact. Father Urbain Grandier was a French Catholic priest who, in 1632, was accused by a local group of nuns that he had bewitched them and sent demons to commit evil and impudent acts with them. Investigations into Urbain reached a new level with the discovery of what people claimed was a physical contract written on paper between Urbain and the devil. The contract was said to be even signed by Urbain, the devil, and a number of different demons. It read, "We, the influential Lucifer, the young Satan, Beelzebub, Leviathan, Elimi, and Astaroth, together with the others, have today accepted the covenant pact of Urbain Grandier, who is ours. And him do we promise the love of women, the flower of virgins, the respect of monarchs, honors, lusts, and powers." That's where it ended. Well, whatever you guys think about all of that, the local court found him guilty and sent him to burn at the stake. Moving on now to number 2, we have Saint Gemma Galgan. In her diaries, she wrote that she believed the devil himself was waging a personal war against her. In one famous passage, she wrote, "The demon came before me as a giant of great height and kept saying to me, 'For thee there is no more hope of salvation. Thou art in my hands.' I replied that God is merciful and therefore I fear nothing. Then, giving me a hard blow on the head in a rage, he said, 'Cursed be you,' and then he disappeared. I then went into my room to rest, and there I found him. He began again to strike me with a knotted rope and wanted me to listen to him while he suggested wickedness. I said no, and he struck me even harder, knocking my head violently against the ground. At a certain point, it came to my mind to invoke Jesus, Father, eternal Father, through the most precious blood of Jesus, free me. I then don't quite know what happened next. That contemptible beast dragged me from my bed and threw me, hitting my head against the floor with such force that it pains me still. I became senseless and remained lying there until I came to myself a long time afterwards. Jesus be thanked." That was just one entry, and it was very intense. From the look of her diary, it wasn't her first encounter, and it certainly wasn't her last. And finally, number 1 now, we have Pope Sylvester II. If you had to pick one person who isn't in league with the devil, you may pick the Pope. But back in the 10th century, people thought the first French Pope was a master of the dark arts and had sold his soul to the devil. He was undoubtedly a genius. He was known for his work in mechanics, mathematics, astronomy, clocks, organs, introducing Arabic numerals to Western Europe, as well as natural science, music, philosophy, and theology. That was a lot for one person, especially back then. After he died, rumors began to circulate that Sylvester had made a deal with the devil, that the devil had given to him his intelligence and wisdom in return for his soul. This was a terrifying prospect for Catholics at the time. The thought that their own leader, God's representative on earth, had been meeting and dealing with the devil in secret. In recent years, experts agree that he likely got his skills and knowledge from regular meetings with scholars from all over the known world, and not from some dark dealings. What do you think?
Number 10, the scanner. This story comes from a user when she was in freshman year of college. She had never been with a boy and had never even kissed one, and she decided she was tired of being so sheltered, so she started going on Tinder. She met a boy for dinner and a movie after they had been chatting for a while, and everything seemed pretty normal. He was then supposed to drive her home, and it was late at night when she realized she had no idea where they were. The car was just on a gravelly road surrounded by farmland. The man said that he was just taking the back roads. Not ominous at all. He says that they were not far away and asked if he could turn on his police scanner. Her just thinking, okay, maybe this guy is a little weird. He then pulled over the car to the side of the road and turned off the headlight. Rightfully, she panicked and pretended to receive a phone call for her mom, being sure to say on the call that she was on a date and would be home soon. And he then took her home. To this day, she is glad she got out of the situation, as she fears what might might have happened on that road. Number 9, the dog. This one comes from a user who started talking to a guy on Tinder who happened to live just down the street from her. The guy would apparently constantly talk about his dog and how he wanted her to come over to his place so she could meet the dog. Eventually, she did agree to come over, and he told her to park her car diagonally next to a large boat that he had in the driveway, leaving only a few inches of room on either side. They eventually get in after the man answered the door in his boxers, and she saw that there was almost no furniture inside the home. He then started asking her strange questions like if anyone was expecting to see her that night, what's her blood type, and who does she live with. She then realizes that this whole time she hasn't seen a dog or any evidence that one even lives there. When she asked about it, he simply smiled and continued on with his questions. She eventually managed to leave after he begged her to stay and then later asked her to join him on a ride into the mountains. Thinking back, she believes that he made her park her car so tightly so she wouldn't be able to quickly escape. Number 8, the friend. This story comes from a self-called introvert who decided it was time for herself to open up and step into the dating world. She matched with a guy and they hit it off pretty well, talking pretty often. She enjoyed talking but realized that every time they spoke, she got a lot of anxiety and had kind of a bad gut feeling about it. But she brushed it off as maybe just her introverted tendencies. Her friends encouraged her and she continued to speak with him after a brief period of ignoring his messages. She agreed to go out to dinner with him, but when she showed pictures to her friends, they pointed out that he looked pretty similar to a shitty ex of hers, and so she panicked and called off the date, unable to continue with it. She then started receiving tons of calls from him, begging her to speak to him again, and when she finally picked up, the person calling revealed that they weren't even her Tinder match, but instead his friend. He said that the man had said he could have her, and that he knew what school she went to, and he would just hang around campus and wait. She blocked him, and fortunately, she never heard from them again. Number 7, the train. One of the most important parts of going anywhere is making sure you have a way to get home, and the guy in this story was presumptuous about where he was going to be spending the night. This girl invited her Tinder date to a concert where he proceeded to get incredibly drunk and unruly. She got tired of it and decided that she was gonna ditch and go to a bar with some of her friends. So she asked him when his last train home was, and he responded by saying it was already gone. She was shocked and asked him how he was planning to get home, and he responded with, "I'm coming home with you." Pretty assuming, threatening, and creepy. He followed them to the bar, but he was soon kicked out for being so drunk that he couldn't even stand up. The next morning, she woke up to a string of pathetic phone calls from him and finding out that he had ended up in the emergency room after being so drunk he fell through a window. Number 6, the bag. Alright, this one is probably the most intense and unsettling on this list. The girl had finally made it to the 3rd date with her Tinder match and feeling pretty comfortable agreed to hang out with him in his home. He poured her a glass of wine and for the most part things seemed to be going well, until she started feeling the effects of something else having been mixed in her wine. Fortunately, she recognized the feeling and made it to the bathroom where she notified the police. She passed out but was woken up by the police who put a bag over her head to lead her out of the home. A few days later, she was requested to come down to the police station and give her statement of what she was able to remember about that night, and she remembered the police having put a bag over her head, curious about why they would have done that. They responded that it was so she couldn't see what the man had set up for her throughout the house. Number 5, the theorist. Now to lighten the situation, let's look at one post that is a little less terrifying. This one comes from a guy who was staying in a hotel in a different city, deciding to invite a girl over from Tinder to make the night a little more interesting. When she got there, they shared small talk and ended up talking about astrology. Being nice, he encouraged her to continue, and continue she did. Eventually, she started talking about how she fully believes in various different conspiracy theories like the Illuminati, fluorinated water, Washington being arranged into a pentagram, and other various things. He said that unfortunately, this made him lose any interest in her, and eventually it got so late that she just decided to leave. Not scary, but more just amusing and bizarre bizarre, and honestly thinking back on it, that may have been me. Number 4, the stalker. This one comes from a girl who started messaging with a guy on Tinder that wasn't her usual type, but still attractive enough. She notes how she made the dumb mistake of mentioning where she worked in their conversation. The same night she mentioned that, she was at work and saw a guy walk past who looked eerily like her Tinder match. A couple days later, she was at work again and was speaking to the man over the phone when she mentioned she would have to talk to him later because her phone battery was almost dead and she didn't have a charger. Just 10 minutes later, the same man she had seen the other day, her Tinder match, walked in with a phone charger for her to use, even though he had said he lived on the very other side of the city. She decided to cut ties there and saw that earlier in the day he had posted a selfie on Instagram with the caption, "I am now a taken man." She said that for weeks afterwards, she would still see him walking outside of her work. Number 3, the abductee. Now let's look at another story that definitely could have maybe been me if I were a man. This girl met a man on Tinder that she had a great time talking online with, and they seemed to get along really well. So they met up, but she then realized that she just wasn't really fully attracted to him, but they decided to keep talking. As time went on, he proceeded to talk about how he had been abducted by aliens throughout his life and even as far back as into his childhood. He had apparently been taken by the aliens multiple times because they had placed a tracking device in his arm, even showing her a scar that he had where he believed it had been placed. She decided that was finally where she had to call it off, and he admitted he felt stupid for bringing it up on the first date. I don't know, is alien abduction something you would want to get out there quickly, or is that like a 3rd date, 4th date kind of thing? Number 2, the cats. This one comes from a guy who decided to meet with his Tinder date for the first time at a barbecue she was having with some of her coworkers. They got along pretty well, and by the end of the night, she invited him to come over to her place, and he agreed. On the way to her house, she mentions that she takes in stray cats. He says that he's allergic, but it shouldn't be an issue as long as he doesn't touch them, thinking that she has like maybe 3 or 4. She responds by saying that she has 15. When they opened the door, he saw a dozen set of eyes staring back at him from the darkness. The house was apparently in a complete state of disarray due to the cats, and the girl apparently not putting very much effort into cleaning. He didn't back out immediately, but after watching about half of a movie, he decided he needed to get out of there. When he woke up a few hours later, he discovered his eyes had been swollen almost completely shut because of the cats. Number 1, the mom. This one is incredibly short and not overly unsettling, but is arguably the best one on this list and one of the biggest red flags ever. This girl agreed to meet her Tinder date for dinner, and when she got there, he was already there with his mother. He said that she had to be there because he and his mom were a package deal. Would you move forward with that date, or would you just walk out right there?
What's up?
And her eyes. It's fascinating. I personally wish the footage was easier to see, as it's not fully convincing me looking at something so blurry. It just makes me feel like it's been altered, but who knows? I may be wrong, and it sure seems like a lot of people believe that it's real. There have been a few people that have tried to debunk it, and truly I think I'm with them on their analysis. This one is too blurry for me to think that it's possibly real, but whatever. It might be. In our number 2 spot, we have MW Jeffrey Black Hodgson. Let's call him Jeff. You know, for short. So Jeff is the Grand Master of the Masons in Massachusetts. Yeah, if you don't know anything about the Masons, then definitely have a Google sesh later tonight. That's a whole other rabbit hole in itself. But yeah, if you know anything about the Masons, then you probably won't be surprised that they are on this list. The Grand Master, the big guy calling the shots, is in this video, and he certainly shows signs of being a shapeshifter. From his eyes suddenly showing slits to his skin apparently showing evidence, there are a a lot of people that believe that this guy is a shapeshifter. And in our number 1 spot, we have Britney Spears. Okay, this one I refuse to believe is real because I love her. God, I do not want to believe it, but the footage certainly makes you think that it's possible that she's a shapeshifter, or that a shapeshifter at some point had taken over her body. That to me would check out more when you think of everything that she has been fighting for recently in terms of her freedom and gaining full control of her body back again. Who knows? Perhaps there is way more to it than we can imagine. I just love her though, so I refuse to believe that she was born a reptile. Anyways, in this shot, her eyes seemingly show slits at times, just like a lot of the other footage that we've shown, and this would point to some kind of reptile living within her.
Starting off this countdown, we have Donald Harvey, aka the Angel of Death. Donald Harvey is a nurse turned serial killer. So he was working in a hospital as a nurse and was secretly killing off his patients. To him, he was doing them a favor. He thought that his chronically ill patients needed a relief from the pain, so he would smother them with pillows or would poison them or let their oxygen tanks run out. It's believed that he took the lives of over 70 people. However, in 1987, he was only convicted for 37 counts of murder. He was sentenced to life plus 20 years. In March of 2017, Harvey was beat up badly by a fellow inmate. He passed away shortly after.
In our number 9 spot, we have Nancy Pelosi. If you are someone living outside of America, then you may not know who this woman is. Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. She's seemingly one of these politicians that you either love or hate, and the people that lean more on the hate side might also lean into this news a little too. Nancy could be a shapeshifter. Yep, a lot of people speculate over this as footage surfaced online showing her right eye doing something crazy when she was talking once. Something that is legit impossible. She's speaking and then all of a sudden it's like her eye rolls back and it becomes fully white with like a black dot slash slit in the middle, and then her real eye returns. It's very strange. This lasts for at least 1.5 seconds, enough that it's very, very noticeable. I don't know, man. If she's not a reptile, then she's gotta be something else, cause this is not human what I just saw. These videos are making me question everyone now. Every so often I have a moment and think, what if everyone is a reptile and I'm amongst the few humans left? And what if their goal is to depopulate us and to continue to grow and populate themselves? It's a very trippy thought. In our number 8 spot, we have Rihanna. No, not Riri. I don't want to believe it. My Disney princess inner essence wants to believe in the good, and Rihanna is one of the good ones. She's not a shape-shifting reptile. But wait, actually, maybe being a reptile isn't a bad thing. Maybe there are good reptiles. Okay, all jokes aside, there is some sus footage of Rihanna out there that could have you convinced that she is possibly one of them and just shape-shifting to look like her beautiful self. In this footage, we once again see the transformation in her eyes like we have in quite a few other people's. But the thing is, the footage is rather blurry, so it's kind of hard to say that she fits in within this group. I'm gonna say she doesn't and just move on to the next one. That's my bias, because I like her. In our number 7 spot, we have a mysterious creature. Okay, this footage kind of makes me laugh because on one hand, it looks like someone dressed up in a costume playing a practical joke. But on the other hand, if it's real, then this is crazy. That is an alien-looking man out in broad daylight with white-ish eyes and green skin that's a bit textured with what looks to be triangles all over him that are different shades of green. It's curious that no one seems to notice him or his peculiar look. If I was standing beside this man and noticed him for the first time, I would, jump. Like do one of those. Which poses the question, is he just visible via camera and invisible in real life? That would be pretty nuts if that's the case. I did a lot of digging on this one and I haven't seen anyone debunk it yet, so I wonder about it. If this is real and there's aliens like him walking among us, then damn, we've been fooled. In our number 6 spot, we have the sports reptilian. Okay, your girl is not into sports much. I'm a fake Toronto Maple Leafs fan. I only watch them when they're winning, like the rest of Toronto. Toronto though. All Torontonians do is complain about the Leafs until there's hope that they might do well. So it's not just me. Anyways, so my point is that I know nothing about sports or even what sport this footage was taken at or even who this guy being interviewed is. All I know is the guy behind him is most definitely a shape-shifting reptilian. No way around it. This footage is great and you can see his eyes as clear as day and you cannot convince me otherwise. This guy is definitely not human. He's just casually hanging out behind whomever is being interviewed, and every so often the camera gets a clear shot of his piercing blue eyes that also have a black slit within them. Some people believe that the reptiles are intentionally revealing themselves in footage like this. Honestly, that theory would make sense because otherwise, how could they let footage like this get out there? But anyways, this one is nuts. In our number 5 spot, we have Shakira. Pop star Shakira has been accused of being a shapeshifter reptilian. I mean, her voice is angelic and not very human-like, so it makes sense. I mean, her voice is angelic, so someone could argue that it's possibly not human-like. Video footage was taken of her speaking in an interview, and yep, you guessed it, her eyes changed very briefly. Now, it is honestly not the easiest to spot as her eye color is quite dark and possibly also the lighting of the video might have sucked too, but when the footage is slowed down and analyzed closely, it does appear that something is going on. Her eye definitely changes, but is it a full-on slit like so many on this list? It's hard to say. Are there any celebs left that are human? In our number 4 spot, we have 2 aliens walking down the street. I honestly don't know what to call this one other than 2 aliens walking down the street because honestly, that's what it definitely seems like. Either they are aliens or they're people from some kind of Buffy the Vampire set, but apparently this footage is really random and that's why people believe it to be real. Supposedly these 2 men weren't near any kind of set or anything, and that's what makes this more mysterious. The men appear to have very big and different looking ears, darkened eyes, and a bigger nose than most people. Honestly, now that I think about it, they look like they just stepped out of Halloween Town. Tell me you know that movie franchise. It's amazing. We're big on Halloween at my house. Anyways, honestly, movies have made me close-minded to the possibility of seeing someone like this in real life, so it's so hard for me to believe that this is real, but who knows? In our number 3 spot, we have glowing eye. Okay, this video makes me want to laugh, but honestly, I could also believe that there's something weird going on here. It appears that the footage was taken in some kind of cave, and the cave is somewhat dark in the distance, and all of a sudden you see 2 glowing orbs look out at the camera in the distance. Then it appears to give us a little bit more of itself, and it looks like it's a very weird shape, whatever it is. Is this a shape or some other kind of weird thing our brains can't process? I don't know. Not gonna lie, it kind of looks like a giant frog. The round orb-like eyes would check out if it was a frog, and its arms kind of, resemble a frog's arms a bit. I don't know. I don't know why I did this. Do frogs stand like this? Maybe. All I know is this is definitely very strange footage, and that creature could be a shapeshifter or a giant frog. I don't know. In our number 2 spot, we have the Dr. Phil guest. For once, it's not a celebrity that revealed themselves as a shapeshifter, but this is an example of just a regular woman. In this footage, Dr. Phil is speaking to a guest, and all of a sudden, the guest's eyes turn into slits. Imagine you were sitting on a live show and talking to someone, and all of a sudden, you witness their eyes changing. Would you run and scream or just continue on with the interview? I mean, I think inside I would be screaming like a baby, but on the outside, I'd look as cool as a cucumber. In our number 1 spot, we have Hillary Clinton. I bet you were wondering if I would ever touch on Hillary Clinton. Well, now is the time. Okay, not gonna lie, there are so many conspiracy theories tied to her being a shapeshifter, reptilian, alien, you name it. But this footage in particular could be nothing, or it could be something. In this footage, it appears that when Hillary takes a drink of water, her chin gets abnormally bigger, and not in a natural way. It appears to enlarge and drop in a way that has people thinking that she might be some kind of reptile. The footage is interesting and strange, and I can see why people might be shocked by it, but I'm not sure I'm fully convinced with this one.
Number 10, Abigail Williams. I'm putting Abigail Williams on this list because the whole ordeal just makes me so mad. By claiming that she was bewitched, she sparked a massive witch hunt, literally one of the most illogical points in history, leading to the most unnecessary deaths of so many people. I can't even watch a production of The Crucible without needing to break stuff after. It makes me so mad. Look, I don't know whether her claims were true, that she and the other girls were afflicted because of witchcraft, or the more likely latter event of them eating an infected piece of grain. Maybe that happened, but I'll let you decide. Abigail Williams was living with her uncle Reverend Samuel Parris and started practicing mild witchcraft with his daughter and Tituba and John Indian, his slaves. You know, the kind of witchcraft where you drop an egg in the water and see the name of your future husband, or I don't know, like where you're gonna go tomorrow, that kind of stuff. Apparently they saw a coffin in the glass and that freaked them out, so they started acting weird. Other girls followed suit. Keep in mind they were around 11 or 12. So, alright, imagination. And then Abigail just kept accusing people like all the time, and if you admitted you were a witch, you were pardoned, and if you didn't, you were killed, okay? So, technically she was never in prison. But she put a lot of people there on bullshit, and then they claimed possession to get out. So I say that this deserves to be number 10. Yeah, there it is.
In our number 9 spot today, we have Dennis BTK Rader. The BTK killer, whose real name is Dennis Rader, was one of the worst serial killers from 1974 to 1991. He left taunting letters to police and newspapers where he described his crimes, but thankfully his annoyingly large and misplaced ego is what led to his demise. Because he craved the attention so badly, in 2004 he started communicating with the media again to try and be all smug or whatever, but this, combined with his utter lack of knowledge on how technology works, led to him being arrested in 2005. Imagine getting away with those crimes for so long and your ego and your own ignorance does you in the end. During his trial, he didn't apologize for his crimes, but he did describe them in full detail, which is horrifying and honestly very unnerving. After his trial, he ended up being sentenced to 10 consecutive life sentences with a minimum of 175 years. When Rader was first arrested and police were taking him to the station, an officer asked him, "Mr. Rader, do you know why you're going downtown?" To which he replied, "Oh, I have suspicions why." Ew. In our number 8 spot today, we have Chester Turner. Chester is an American serial killer who, on April 30th, 2007, was convicted of taking the lives of 11 women in the Los Angeles area, and on June 19th, 2014, he was convicted of 4 more that they were able to tie back to him. He has been referred to by prosecutors as one of the most prolific serial killers in the city's history, and if you know Los Angeles' history with things like that, that is not something to take lightly. In his original trial that led to conviction, Chester was sentenced to death, but at the following one in 2014, he also received an additional death sentence. In the end, like with a lot of these kinds of stories, DNA came to save the day and help authorities find out who was committing these horrible, horrible crimes. In our number 7 spot today, we have Gary Ridgway. This horrible human being is also sometimes known as the Green River Killer, and his crimes took place somewhere between 1982 to potentially as recent as 2001. He was convicted of 49 crimes but confessed to an unbelievable 71, which makes him the second most prolific serial killer in the United States in terms of confirmed killings. Most of his victims were either sex workers or women in other vulnerable circumstances, and through DNA profiling evidence, in 2001, authorities were able to connect him to 4 of his crimes. From there, they made a deal with him where they would spare him the death sentence in exchange for disclosure of the location of all of the missing women. Gary took the deal and was spared the death sentence and instead was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Not only did he say that he chose the type of victims he did because they were, quote, easy to pick, and that he, quote, hated most of them, but he also called his crimes his career. I hate him. In our number 6 spot today, we have Charles Ng. Charles' story really starts off shortly after he moved to the United States on a student visa. He dropped out after his first semester, and soon after he was involved in a hit-and-run accident. He then tried to avoid prosecution by enlisting in the United States Marine Corps, using false documents that stated his birthplace was within the United States. He was arrested by military police a year later for stealing automatic weapons, and then somehow he escaped custody, headed back towards Northern California, and this is where he met Leonard Lake, who is another real piece of work. Charles did end up going away and serving a bit of time, but it was only 18 months and then he was back with Leonard, and that is when the two started their crime spree together. It is believed that together the pair took the lives of somewhere from 11 to 25 different people. When Leonard was caught and brought in for questioning, he sneakily took a cyanide pill he had hidden in his jacket and took his own life, but Charles ended up standing trial. He was convicted for 11 of the killings and he remains on death row at San Quentin. In our number 5 spot today, we have Robert Pickton. This horrible person is one of the worst Canadians to ever live and is one of our country's worst serial killers ever. Pickton dropped out of school and began working at his family's pig farm, and this is where most of his absolutely horrific crimes took place. He was first arrested in 2002 and was convicted in 2007 of taking the lives of 6 people, but throughout an extremely lengthy investigation, evidence of many more killings came to light. During his time in jail, an undercover police officer posed as his cellmate, and Pickton confessed to 49 crimes to him. Apparently, he was saying to the undercover officer that he wanted to take one more life to make it an even 50, and that he only got caught because he was sloppy. The entire trial was a bit of a mess, but it led to a life sentence without the possibility of parole for 25 years, which was the longest possible sentence under Canadian law at the time. This unfortunately does mean that he will be eligible for parole within the next decade, so let's hope that never ever happens. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Golden State Killer. The Golden State Killer is one of the most well-known serial killers ever, and that is never a good thing. From 1973 to 1986, the GSK was responsible for taking the lives of 13 people, harming 50, and 120 different burglaries all across California. Throughout the investigation process, he used different tactics to both taunt and threaten police and the victims, which is just on a whole other disgusting level. Through recent genetic testing, like those 23andMe things, the identity of the GSK was finally revealed after years and years of investigations. Basically, they uploaded a DNA profile that they were able to get from the crime scenes to the website GED Match. They were able to find 10 to 20 people who had the same great-great-great-grandparents as a match. And then from there, the genealogist made a large family tree, and from there, they were then able to single out 2 main suspects. After covertly collecting DNA samples from one of the suspects and comparing them with the crime scene DNA, they were finally able to arrest Joseph James D'Angelo, who is the Golden State Killer. After decades of waiting, the victims of his crimes were finally able to see justice served, as he was sentenced to 12 life sentences plus 8 years. He was spared the death penalty because he admitted to numerous crimes that he had perpetrated, some of which he wasn't even being charged for. He is now 75 years old and will definitely spend the rest of his life in prison. In our number 3 spot today, we have Rodney Alaka. Rodney is a horrible monster who was convicted and sentenced to death for 5 killings that he committed in California from 1977 to 1979. He also received an additional 25 years to life after pleading guilty to 2 other killings in New York from 1971 to 1977. Rodney got away with his crimes for a while because he wasn't the top of the list of suspects because he was said to be the, quote, charming photographer. Rodney is often referred to as the dating game killer because of his appearance on the show, which, with what we now know about him, is absolutely horrifying. What's even crazier is that he actually won the show he was on, but the episode's bachelorette refused to go on a date with him because she found him, quote, creepy. This is just a reminder to always trust your instincts. It isn't exactly known just how many victims Rodney had. It is potentially thought that it could be much higher than the number he was convicted for. In July of last year, Rodney passed away in prison at the age of 77. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Zodiac Killer. This one had to make it on this list today because while there are a plethora of terrifying people on this list, nothing is as terrifying as an uncaught serial killer, and the Zodiac is definitely the most prolific of them all. The Zodiac Killer took the lives of 5 people in the San Francisco Bay Area between December 1968 and October 1969. He was most known for targeting young couples or a lone male cab driver. Despite 2 people luckily and thankfully escaping his attempted evil doings, he has still never been caught. He was one of those losers who left notes and stuff for the police to find. I like that they think they're being all cool and clever and brave while they do that. Like, if you're so brave and almighty and unafraid, then show us your face. While no one has heard from the Zodiac since 1974, the case remains active in many different countries, and maybe one day we'll finally know who the real Zodiac is. In our number 1 spot today, we have Robert Hansen. Robert is often referred to as the Butcher Baker, and his story truly is horrific. He is one of the most prolific serial killers in Alaska's history because, for over a decade, he would kidnap women and bring them into the wilderness where he would then stalk them like prey. I am
And
just
realize
now realizing
their
there's
immortality.
definitely an episode of Criminal Minds about this guy. Sometimes the premise is just so dark that it
Yeah,
sticks
so-
with you. The reason he got away with his crimes for so long is because outside of these horrific things, he was just a soft-spoken baker. One of my best friends has the nicest, most kind bakers for parents, and now I'm starting to feel a little suspicious. Might want to look into them, Robin. Robert was heading to church by day and prowling strip clubs at night looking for the next person to take. What led to the downfall of this horrible monster was a badass named Cindy Paulson who was able to escape from Robert and was sure to leave evidence behind. She then went to authorities and told them what happened, and this led to a search warrant for Robert's property, which is where all the evidence they needed lied. Robert is believed to have taken the lives of at least 17 women, and in 1983 he was sentenced to 461 years and a life sentence without the possibility of parole.
Starting us off with number 10 is Thanksgiving turkey. User Mash Skulls shared that about a month ago they had sleep paralysis. One morning they started hearing this distorted, deep, unfamiliar voice. They started hearing more than one voice and tried to move or wake up, but they couldn't. And this is where it gets really freaking screwed up. The user saw a bunch of faceless men with razor-sharp teeth coming towards them, grinding their teeth as they went. They were whispering food, food, food over and over again, and were legit holding knives and forks. Now imagine being unable to control or move your body as these cannibal creatures just coming towards you. Now they surrounded the user, climbed on top of them, and then carved them like a turkey. It gets graphic. They tore the user limb from limb. They went headfirst into the rest of their body like a bunch of starving hyenas. The user watched them take her own finger bones and use them as toothpicks. Can you even, I don't even want to imagine this. The user literally had to listen to Beethoven for 3 hours after the dream just to get the image of being eaten alive out of their head. And honestly, I don't even know what I would do in that position. Probably not Beethoven, maybe Mozart.
Coming in at number 9, we have Jeffrey Bezos. I'm sensing a theme here, okay? People like to think that rich, powerful men are aliens. Jeffrey Bezos, CEO, entrepreneur, born in 1964, is another individual that might be an alien. Also, that was a reference to Bo Burnham. I love him. His song, Jeffrey Bezos, go check it out. Not only is he very intelligent, but people have been studying his mannerisms and think there's something wrong with him. Take a look at this.
But that was actually not supposed to be a bad pun. And then disclosure, you are...
Is it just me, or is his laugh undeniably creepy? He keeps his eyes wide open and locked on his target while laughing. Also, it seems forced. Maybe aliens don't have any emotions, so he has to force himself to laugh at jokes so he seems normal. I don't even know what to think anymore. Also, side note, someone deepfaked Jeffrey into a Star Trek episode, and let's just say I'm now scarred for life.
Is this a deception? Do you intend to destroy yourselves?
Moving on to number 8, we have Alien Barbie. Ukrainian woman Valeria Lukyanova is known as the human Barbie doll. She's got an impossible tiny waist, wide doll-like eyes, and a big bust. In fact, to achieve this look, she had some of her ribs removed. But not only is she a real-life Barbie doll, but she also claims that she's a time-traveling alien. Yes, you heard me correctly. This woman claims that she's not human. She said that she's an alien that has come to Earth to save the world. Little late for that. But what is she saving us from, you ask? Well, she says negative energy. Okay. And she has a goal to transform humans into demigods. I mean, that's cool. I want to be a demigod, so sign me up for that. She also has claimed to be a breatharian. She says that she lives off of nothing but light and air. So maybe she really is an alien, because it's physically impossible to live off of just light and air. Like, you need food and water. Coming in at number 7, we have Grimes. Grimes might just be an alien, and so
no.
cute. 2 aliens came from space and connected on Earth. That's what I call destiny and true love. Anyways, if you follow her, then you know she's quite the character.
And just recently, she got alien scars on her back. Or at least that's what she calls them. They're just a bunch of light-colored lines that she got tattooed on her back. But maybe aliens actually have tattoos or designs like that on their backs, and she knows something that we don't know. I mean, there's a huge conspiracy out there that Grimes is an alien. Just search on Reddit and you'll find a number of people who believe this theory. Moving on, at number 6 we have Poppy.
Hi, it's me, Poppy.
I'd say, you know what? I'm glad I was wrong.
Poppy is an American singer, songwriter, musician, and YouTuber. She's known for her very unusual videos where she talks in a very soft and high-pitched voice. Is this just her persona or stage act, or is she an alien? Now, there's so many different theories surrounding her. From being part of the Illuminati, to being created by the government, to being a hologram, to even being a robot. I'm telling you, there's tons of theories out there. But a more popular one is that she's an alien from space. Most of this is based off of her mannerisms in her videos, and the fact that we hardly know anything about her true self. One video that really started this theory was one where she reacts to a Fine Bros video. In this video, she cited every single word that was shown from her older videos. And she did this without showing any emotions, and without even acknowledging the kids that were reacting to her. It's very weird, to say the least.
Hi, I'm Poppy. You're freaking me out. I wanted to see you. What the heck? Thanks for coming down here with me.
We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Steve Buscemi. And I just want to start off by saying that he's an amazing actor. Like, totally underrated. And I'm so happy talking about him because, also fun fact, we share the same birthday, so I just feel this connection to him. So Steve, if you're watching this, I want to be your friend. Anyways, people often judge Steve based off of his looks. I mean, I think he was on the list of like ugliest people in Hollywood or something like that, which like, that is mean. How did they get away with that? That's super hurtful. Lists like that just shouldn't exist, okay? But anyways, due to his unique appearance, people think that Steve is out of this world. They think that he's an alien or a cryptoid or something like that. There's even a bunch of memes out there making fun of Steve saying that he's an alien. I personally don't think he's one. Like, if we're judging based off looks, that's just mean. He's a great guy. But I still put him on this list for all you people out there that think that he could be one. Watch him actually be an alien. I'm like defending him. In our 4th spot, we have Tilda Swinton, who, might I add, is another incredible actor. Tilda's range is unbelievable. She is unrecognizable in some roles. Like, she goes from playing the White Witch in the Chronicles of Narnia, to the Ancient One in Doctor Strange, to Laura in Hail Caesar. She's just so versatile, and that's why some people think that she's an alien, because the ease in which she can transform her appearance and look like a completely different person, or the ease in which she can change her personality and behave like a completely different person. I mean, I just call that good acting, but then other people are like, aliens! Also, people think that she's an alien because she has a unique appearance. Again, let's not judge a book by its cover here. It seems like the people trying to behave normally are the ones we should be concerned about, okay? In our 3rd spot, we have Bill Gates. I wish I had the amount of wealth that Bill Gates had, and now he's single, so Bill, hit me up. Just kidding. You're too old for me. Anyways, according to some people, Bill is an alien. How come aliens always have to be the richest people? Like, seriously, you got Mark, you got Jeffrey Bezos, and now Bill. How come all the alien dudes are rich? Anyways, the main reason why people think that he's an alien is due to his advanced knowledge on computers and technology. So aliens are supposed to be highly advanced creatures. They created highly advanced spacecrafts to travel throughout space and to Earth. Maybe Bill was sent from space to help advance human life. And then he liked it so much here that he decided to stick around. Or maybe he got too famous and was like, oh crap, I can't just disappear from the public eye. They're gonna wonder where I went. And now he's kind of stuck on Earth against his will. Moving on to number 2, we have Stephen Colbert. Honestly, he's the last person I would think to be an alien. But that's a good thing, right? It means that he's being stealthy about it. It's always the people you least expect. So a woman named Liz Brown came up with proof as to why she believes Stephen is an alien. Her first point is his intelligence. She said, and I quote,
A recent report showed that viewers of the Colbert Report are more well-informed about political and social issues than viewers of legitimate news programs on ABC or CNN. Most alien experts agree that our interplanetary friends have a level of intelligence far beyond human capabilities. Of course, this could also mean that regular Colbert Report viewers are being groomed for abduction. End of quote. Imagine that, Steven using his show to gain fans and then abduct them and use them in tests run by aliens. The next point she made is his immunity from diseases. She said that she has never seen him get sick. She said, and I quote, "What kind of regular human beings can consume Bud Light Lime on a regular basis on air and still not get sick?" End quote. She's kind of got a point there. She then also went on to talk about Steven's love for space. In 2009, he made a public campaign telling his viewers to vote for the new treadmill on the International Space Station to be named after him. Why did he want this so badly? Well, it could be that this was a way to send a message to his alien friends out there, telling them, like, we did it, I'm in control of the humans, this is proof. Crazy, isn't it? Makes you really think. And in our number one spot today, we have Elon Musk. Why does Elon Musk want to go to Mars so bad? Honestly, he just wants to return to his home planet. He has announced a number of times that he wants to retire and die on Mars. He probably hates it here on Earth and is dying to get back. Let's look at more evidence. This dude invented the Tesla, like he's super intelligent. First off, he got into the electrical vehicle business, which only represents 0.1% of all cars sold. Looking at that, it would seem like a bad thing to get into. But nonetheless, he did, and he succeeded. Why? Because he's got alien capabilities to not only see into the future, but also create high-tech things, like Teslas. Someone else added that his end goal is to save Earth. He's seen into the future and how bad global warming gets. So he's trying to reduce global emissions through his cars. Maybe make them cheaper then. Not only that, but on a number of occasions he has tweeted out some suspicious things. Someone tweeted at him asking if he was an alien, and he said, obviously. So, he just admitted it, okay? I know he's just joking, but still. Another time he tweeted saying aliens built the pyramids. I mean, he was probably one of the aliens there building them alongside the Egyptians. In the end, everything he's doing on Earth is to save us and then, you know, help himself get back to his home planet. Starting off this countdown, we have Richard Matt. Matt's career as a criminal started off when he was young. He was involved in robberies, kidnappings, and then eventually murder. The first murder he committed was of his former boss. He then fled to Mexico to avoid being caught. While there, he murdered a second man while attempting to rob him. In 2007, he was convicted for the murders and began serving a 25-year to life sentence. But guess what? In 2015, he actually escaped the facility with a fellow inmate, and they spent 20 days on the run before getting recaught. And apparently, he has a history of jailbreaks. So I don't know why they just didn't pay closer attention to him. In the end, this was his final escape since he was caught and killed by Border Patrol while trying to flee to Canada.
In our number 9 spot today, we have the Golden State Killer. The Golden State Killer is one of the most famous serial killers of all time, and he managed to elude police for 30 years. From 1973 to 1986, the GSK was responsible for taking the lives of 13 people, harming 50, and 120 different burglaries all across California. Throughout the investigation process, he used different tactics to both taunt and threaten police and victims, which is just another level of being messed up. If you don't know how this story ends, buckle up though, because it is wild. So you know those like family DNA tests like 23andMe, where you send in your DNA and then they send you back your genealogy? Well, basically these kinds of services helped identify who the real Golden State Killer was. In 2018, when Detective Paul Holes and FBI lawyer Steve Kramer uploaded the Golden State Killer DNA profile, which they were able to obtain from the crime scenes, to the website GED Match, they were able to find 10 to 20 people who had the same great-great-great-grandparents as this DNA match. From there, a genealogist made a large family tree, and then they were able to single out 2 main suspects. After covertly collecting DNA samples from one of the suspects and comparing them to the crime scene DNA, they were finally able to arrest Joseph James D'Angelo, who is the Golden State Killer. After decades decades of waiting, the victims of his crimes
Nice.
were
I don't
finally
want
able to see
more
justice
right
served as he was sentenced to 12
What?
life sentences plus
I don't
8
know.
years. He was spared the death penalty because he admitted to numerous crimes he had perpetrated, some of which he wasn't even being charged for. He is now 75 years old and will definitely spend the rest of his life in prison. In our number 8 spot today, we have David Berkowitz. David Berkowitz, or the Son of Sam, is an American serial killer who terrorized New York from July of 1976 to July of 1977. He took the lives of 6 people and wounded 7 others, all while eluding the biggest manhunt in New York City history. He was one of those arrogant ones who leaves like little notes for the police promising to do it again, but his arrogant self was caught for his crimes and he was arrested on August 10th, 1977 and was indicted for his crimes. He confessed to all of them and claimed that he was just obeying the orders of a demon that had manifested itself in the form of a dog that belonged to his neighbor. He was found mentally competent to stand trial and he pleaded guilty to his crimes, which left him sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences. He later admitted to making up the dog story, which, like, yeah, duh, but he did say that he was a member of a violent satanic cult and his crimes were committed as a part of that. These claims were investigated, but no one has ever been able to confirm or deny them. In our number 7 spot today, we have Tex Watson. Tex Watson was one of the central members of the Manson family, which was led by Charles Manson, and he was a willing participant for the horrible Tate and LaBianca crimes that took place on August 9th and 10th, 1969. In October of 1969, Tex knew his arrest was coming, so he fled to his home state of Texas, but was later arrested and extradited back to California. Once he was in California, he refused to talk or eat and ended up losing 55 pounds, which got him sent to get tested to see if he was fit to stand trial, which he was. In 1971, he was convicted on 7 counts of first-degree unalive and 1 count of conspiracy to commit unalive. He originally received a death sentence, but it ended up being commuted to life in prison. Get this, you guys, though, he was able to release a book while in prison, and he got married, and through conjugal visits, he was able to have 4 children. 4 children. But thankfully, in 1996, they banned those kinds of visits for people serving life in prison, and in 2003, he got divorced because his wife had met someone else. Like, I hope so. In our number 6 spot today, we have Scott Erskine. Early in life, Scott began to commit violent crimes against others that I truly cannot even speak about here on YouTube. They're so bad. He spent 4 years in prison for one of these crimes when he was around 17 years old, but when he was paroled after the 4 years, he immediately began committing crimes again. In 1993, Scott invited a woman who was waiting for the bus into his home and ended up holding her hostage for several days. After letting her go, he was quickly arrested and ended up being sentenced to 70 years in prison. This is when he had to submit DNA to a database, and in March of 2001, that DNA was matched when the cold cases of the unsolved killings of Jonathan Sellers and Charlie Keever were reopened. In 2004, a jury sentenced him to death, and 6 days later he was transferred to San Quentin. In an interesting turn of events, Scott did die on death row, but it wasn't due to a scheduled execution. Scott died a couple of years ago in July of 2020 after contracting COVID-19. In our number 5 spot today, we have Charles Ng. Charles' story starts off shortly after he moved to the United States on a student visa. He dropped out after his first semester, and soon after he was involved in a hit-and-run accident. He then tried to avoid prosecution by enlisting in the United States Marine Corps, using false documents that stated his birthplace was within the United States. He was arrested by military police a year later for stealing automatic weapons, and then somehow he escaped custody, headed back toward Northern California, and this is where he met Leonard Lake, who is another real piece of work. Charles did end up going away and serving a bit of time, but it was only 18 months and he was back with Leonard, and that is when the two started their crime spree. It is believed that together the pair took the lives of somewhere from 11 to 25 different people. When Leonard was caught and brought in for questioning, he sneakily took a cyanide pill he had hidden in his jacket and took his own life, but Charles ended up standing trial. He was convicted for 11 of the killings and he remains on death row at San Quentin. In our number 4 spot today, we have Sean Great. Sean is a serial killer who committed a series of crimes from 2006 until he was apprehended in 2016. Throughout his decade of criminal activity, it is thought that he took the lives of at least 5 people. So basically, his story is a little confusing, but in September of 2016, Sean was arrested and later indicted for 2 killings as well as a kidnapping and harming a woman whose 911 call actually led to his arrest. At the same time, in another county next door, he was also being charged with 2 other deaths as well as another one from all the way back in 2016. This final count from all of those years ago was actually an unsolved Jane Doe case who had been unidentified for 12 years. When Sean confessed to this crime, he wasn't even sure who she was, he just said he believed her name was Dana. On May 7th, 2018, Sean was convicted on 2 of the counts, and on March 1st, 2019, he pleaded guilty to 2 of the others, and on September 11th, 2019, he pleaded guilty to the additional count. In the end, he was sentenced to death and has remained on death row since that final plea and sentencing, and he is currently scheduled to be executed in 2025. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Zodiac Killer. This one had to make it on this list because while there are a plethora of terrifying people on this list, nothing is as terrifying as an uncaught serial killer, and the Zodiac is definitely the most prolific of them all. The Zodiac Killer took the lives of 5 people in the San Francisco Bay Area between 1968 and October of 1969. He was most known for targeting young couples or a lone male cab driver. Despite 2 people luckily and thankfully escaping his attempted evil doings, he has still never been caught. While no one has heard from the Zodiac since 1974, the case remains active in many different counties, and maybe one day we'll finally know who the real Zodiac is. In our number 2 spot today, we have Dale Hausner and Samuel Dietman. Known as the serial shooters, the crimes these guys committed are definitely on the list of fears I have, which I'm pretty sure spawned from a Criminal Minds episode. These 2 were actively committing these crimes between May of 2005 and August of 2006. Basically, they were arsonists who would randomly set fire to objects, but they would also drive around and commit random drive-by shootings. That's the really scary part. The fire thing is also bad, don't get me wrong. There's just something about completely random violence that absolutely terrifies me. In the end, a series of tips is what led investigators to identify the perpetrators of these horrible crimes. In particular, one from a friend of Samuel who explained that Sam had actually confessed to some of the killings one night while drinking. In Dale's trial, he was found guilty of 80 out of the 87 felony charges that were brought forth, and that was all in one single trial. In the end, he was sentenced to death 6 times, and his brother, who was later found out to have assisted in some of the crimes, was sentenced to 25 years. Samuel was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Doodler. While this nickname sounds very sweet, it, like everything else on this list, is very sinister. The nickname that this unidentified killer received is due to his practice of sketching his victims before taking their lives. This unidentified killer committed their crimes in the San Francisco area from January of 1974 to September of 1975, and they specifically targeted gay men. It is believed that 14 deaths can be attributed to this killer, while 3 others were injured in the process. Unfortunately, because of the stigma and sensitivity surrounding gay men at the time, the 3 who survived this monster were very reluctant when speaking with the authorities for fear of being outed as a result of it. This has led to there being very little information for them to work with in terms of identifying the man responsible. For a while, there was a primary suspect, but that person has never been officially charged because sadly, none of the survivors felt comfortable enough to testify in court.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Luigi Lucchini. Back in the late 1800s, the Empress Elizabeth of Austria was sadly taken out by a man named Luigi Lucchini. He wasn't a royal, he wasn't a long-lost son, he wasn't hired help, nothing like that. He was just somebody who wanted to attack a royal. Any royal, for that matter, just no reason at all. He didn't have anything against Empress Elizabeth per se, but come September 10th, 1898, he took the Empress's life. In his own admission, Luigi stated he had nothing against the Empress on a personal level, but what had really happened that day was Luigi had intended on taking the life of the Duke of Orleans, but Luigi arrived too late in Geneva and the opportunity to do so had passed. He looked at a local newspaper then, saw Elizabeth, found out where she was staying, and then just waited for her to leave the hotel. Just like that. That is so scary. People are insane. That is just number 10.
Number 9, Merlin. We all know Merlin. He's one of the most famous characters from English myth. Being the guy who helped King Arthur, it must be easy to become king when you have a wizard in your back pocket. But what if he isn't myth? What if the character is real and is still walking around to this day? There's evidence of characters like Merlin or Merlin himself popping up again and again through English history. Some people believe that he's still alive and still protecting the royal family. Maybe if he's still alive, he should retire from protecting some of the richest people in the world and help out the rest of us. Why not cast a spell that gives me a good night's sleep for once? Number 8, Hercules. One of the buffest dudes in history. If you don't know the story of Hercules, he was basically a demigod and he wanted to be a god. And the gods told him, if you want to be a god, you gotta show everyone how much of a stud you are. And he did. He killed a lion with his bare hands, then he killed a multi-headed fire-breathing hydra, and he went to the underworld and captured the gatekeeper of the underworld. This dude's a legend, and his core strength must have been insane. Now the story goes that he was never given his wish and granted godhood, but many people believe that the myth is wrong and this is just the story that was passed around. That the true story is that he was gifted his rightful god power and immortality. As long as he never told a soul, he would keep his godhood. I mean, you wouldn't want him to tell anyone because then there would be a bunch of people trying to kill stuff trying to become gods. Number 7, Sir Galahad. One of the most famous knights of the Round Table, the original boys club. I bet they all met in a treehouse. You had to climb a rope ladder to get into it. You could only get in if you knew the secret password, and there was a sign on the door that said no girls allowed. I might be mixing up King Arthur's knights with the Little Rascals. Anyways, Sir Galahad was the illegitimate son of Sir Lancelot and Elaine of Corbetic, and it said he is one of the people who has found the Holy Grail. Drinking from said grail is supposed to grant the person immortality. Now just like Merlin, Galahad is supposed to be one thing of legend, but some people believe the knights did exist and are still in charge of secret underground cults to this day. If this is real, I would want footage of someone putting Galahad in one of Elon Musk's rockets and his face as he gets shot into space. Nothing like a 1,000-year-old man seeing what space looks like. Number 6, Conan O'Brien. Let's take a hard left turn out of myth and turn it to something that might be one of the strangest on the list. Late night TV show host Conan O'Brien. Why, you may ask? Well, it's because of this picture. This is a comparison picture between Conan and a Civil War soldier. They're eerily close to each other. Maybe Conan is closer to Wolverine than the hilarious ginger comic we have all come to know and love. What if all his jokes are just a way he can cover up his PTSD from fighting in centuries of wars? I mean, good for him. To go from war vet to American celebrity, that's a big jump that almost no one could do. Maybe back on the battlefield, no one thought he was funny, so he became immortal out of sheer willpower, just so he could stay alive long enough to find his audience. Number 5, James Bedford. If you're going to die, but you have faith that in the future they'll be able to bring you back to life, then why not throw your body into a giant freezer? James Bedford was the first person ever to be cryogenically frozen. He was an American psychology professor at the University of California and wanted his body to be preserved for later days, just in case they ever figured out a way to bring frozen people back from the dead so they could walk around again. If this was ever to happen, he would be first in line. He passed away in 1967, and right after he was pronounced legally dead, they threw him in a big chest freezer and set it to Ice Age. I'm sure it was more scientific than that, but you get the idea. Now, we haven't come across the technology to resurrect this guy, but if we do, he's gonna get the Captain America treatment and be very close to being immortal. Number 4, Hugh Glass. Have you ever seen The Revenant? The movie where Leonardo DiCaprio has the worst weekend ever? Well, in that movie, he plays frontiersman Hugh Glass. Now, Hugh Glass was mauled by a bear and left for dead and had to trek for miles and miles with broken bones and brutal wounds and survived. How did he do this? Well, the history books said he did this with grit, determination, and pure survivalist instincts. But the deep dark corners of the internet have other opinions. Some people are pushing the idea that he's an immortal or has some sort of Deadpool healing factor. This would allow him to survive such a brutal attack and make it back to full health. And if this is true, he might still be alive to this day, keeping his healing ability secret from the public. Number 3, Jack Lucas. One of the biggest bad all time. This guy literally might be unkillable. I don't want to trash talk him because I'm pretty sure he would find me and come beat the hell out of me. Jack Lucas fought in World War II, and while serving, he jumped on 2 Japanese grenades and survived both explosions. And not like barely even survived, he kept serving in the army. Maybe back then, Japanese craftsmanship wasn't what it is now. After this, he became a paratrooper, and on one of his jumps, his chute didn't deploy. Now you think plummeting to the earth would surely just kill you. Not Jack Lucas. His buddies found him alive and well. This dude is probably like a werewolf or a robot or like a robot werewolf. Number 2, Roy Benavides. We're gonna stay on this trend of people who could beat up anyone's dad with Roy Benavides. Roy Benavides was a Special Forces officer. He stepped on a landmine in 1965 and he was told he would never walk again. And he was like, not only am I gonna walk again, I'm gonna go back and fight in war again. And he did. He fought in the Vietnam War. During one battle, he was leading a small troop and they were under attack by over 1,000 Vietnamese soldiers. By the time the fighting was done, he had been wounded by either gunfire, knives, or shrapnel 37 times. 37! He was pronounced dead and put in a body bag. Then, he came back to life and unzipped the body bag he was inside. Death probably looked at this guy and was like, nah, you're too much for me. We're trying to build a nice neighborhood over here. You stay alive. Number 1, Tsutomu Yamaguchi. What's the worst week you've ever had? Whatever it is, I bet it's not as bad as this guy. Tsutomu Yamaguchi was in Hiroshima in 1945 when the first atomic bomb dropped. He obviously survived. I mean, he's on our list of immortals. He did sustain some injuries. His skin was burned and one of his eardrums was ruptured. But for an atomic bomb dropping, that's like leaving relatively unscathed. So he was injured and he went home to Nagasaki. 3 days later, he was at work sharing his crazy story of how he saw the atomic bomb get dropped. And then, if you know your history, the second atomic bomb was dropped and the dude survived again. He took back-to-back atomic bomb bombings and walked away with an earache. This dude could very well be immortal, or at least radiation proof.
Starting off this countdown, we have Eileen Wuornos. Eileen Wuornos is often considered the first female serial killer. She was found guilty of killing 7 men. She would murder them, rob them, and then drive home in their cars. Although she claims every murder was self-defense. In our interview, we can see how lax she is when talking about killing.
Just shot in self-defense, boom, boom, boom. You know, they weren't cut up, they weren't sliced up, no OJ jazz, you know. And he said, I did the most horrendous crime in the whole wide world.
Death and murder literally doesn't faze her at all. In fact, she claims that what she did wasn't even bad. Yeah, she tries to justify her actions by saying she just shot them, as if that's not a big deal.
But you've been convicted of killing 7 men.
Everybody's looking at the number.
Does that not, you killed 7 men, 7 strangers. Does that not make you a serial killer?
So I didn't kill them every day, did I?
Again, she's acting like her killing 7 men isn't a big deal. Like, oh, it's just 7 men, people have done worse. It's crazy.
Next up, at number 9, we have Ayman al-Zawahiri. After Osama bin Laden was killed in 2011, al-Zawahiri has been the leader of Al-Qaeda. The terrorist organization is confirmed to have carried out numerous attacks throughout the world, leading to hundreds, if not thousands, of deaths, and they have also claimed responsibility for other violent crimes. There is currently a 25 million USD reward for information that leads to his arrest. Moving right along, at number 8, we have Rocco Morabito. Morabito is an Italian mobster and something of an escape artist when it comes to evading the law. He has been on the run for 23 years, starting back in 1994. Is this real life right now? How can we not capture this guy? We have so much advanced technology. And he's been on the run for his crimes related to drug trafficking, the mafia, and other serious crimes. His wiki actually never revealed what his crimes were. They were probably too horrifying. But if we're dealing with the mafia, I can only imagine what he's done. I've watched a lot of movies. Well, he was ultimately caught in 2017 with a bunch of guns, credit cards, cell phones, money. But like I said at the beginning of this, he's an escape artist. So he was able to escape again 2019. So we're talking just last year, and right now he's still at large. Number 7 spot today goes to George Luis Mendoza Cardenas. Cardenas is a Mexican drug lord, one of the leaders of the Jalisco New Generation cartel. This cartel provides marijuana, heroin, meth, and cocaine to some of the biggest cities in the US. He has been wanted since 2016, but also for the gruesome murder of a family of 6. He was arrested in 2008, but was mysteriously released with no explanation. My explanation might be drug money. He might have bought his way out of this one, and threats. He probably threatened a lot of people. He has been wanted by the DEA since 2016, and he's somewhere out there. Our number 6 spot goes to Nemesia Asegura Cervantes. Cervantes is the official leader of the Jalisco New Generation cartel, above even Cardenas. He is the most wanted fugitive in Mexico right now, and the government is offering 30 million MXN just for the information that leads to his arrest. He is actually suspected on ordering the murder of 17-year-old YouTube star Juan Rosales, and this is after he made a video making fun of him. Halfway through this list now, we have Anders Cameroon Ostavik Dale. Dale has been blacklisted since 2014 by the US Department of State, but he has been wanted ever since 2012 for his connections with Al-Qaeda. After breaking off contact with his wife, he has been reportedly missing since 2012, and he is suspected to have received explosives training, specifically in making bomb belts, explosives, and car bombs. He became wanted in 2012 after planning the bombing of the 2012 Olympic Games. Next up, number 4, we have Hayat Boumediene. Boumediene is wanted for being the accomplice to her husband, Amity Coulibaly, after he shot and killed a police officer at the Montarogue shooting. He also took hostages and killed 4 civilians in the Port de Vences siege, and this is where he was killed by police. So although her husband was killed by police, she's still out there somewhere, and she's still very dangerous, and she is still wanted. And at number 3 is David Durham. Durham has been wanted by the FBI since 2011 after shooting and seriously injuring a cop at a routing traffic stop. To this day, nobody is sure why he reacted the way he did. Did he commit other crimes that he didn't want to get caught for? His friends and family said that he has been on painkillers and seemed paranoid leading up to the shooting. He disappeared immediately after shooting the police officer, and even after extensive search, there has been no confirmed sightings of him. I mean, he's now become like the Loch Ness Monster. Like, where is he? Coming at number 2 is Eugene Palmer. Palmer is one of the most recent additions to the FBI's top 10 wanted fugitives list. And this is after his son and daughter-in-law separated and the DIL got a restraining order against her husband. She and Palmer got into multiple heated arguments. This escalated until one day when Palmer started shooting at her from a distance and then provided one last close-range shot that killed her. He has been on the run ever since that happened, and no traces of him has ever been found, other than the pickup truck that was used to flee the scene, but he has not been seen. And wrapping our number 1 spot, we have Xavier Dupont de Legons. Legons is currently at large for murdering and burying his entire family behind their home. Is this real life right now? Well, in early April of 2011, he shot and killed his wife, their 4 children ages 20, 18, 16, and even 13, and their family dog. Their bodies were found a few weeks later under their porch, and despite 900 suspected sightings of this guy since, he has never been caught. This guy has become a mastermind. Well, there you guys have it. That was your top 10 scariest people who are still in hiding. Hopefully none of us come across him, and hopefully these people are caught really soon.
Starting us off at number 10 is The Thief. So this was shared by someone whose mum worked as a manager at Walmart. One day she came home proper surprise, and obviously the kid asked what happened that day. That day at work, a woman was caught trying to steal one of the prepaid phones on display. Now when the security guard caught her, she pulled out the knife she'd been using to open up the phone's packaging to cut him open. But before doing that, she cut herself first and then screamed about how she had AIDS and now how the guard had AIDS as well, all because he was trying to stop her from taking the phone. The story is honestly all over the place. I don't even know what to say to you guys. I saw the first rule they teach you in retail is never chase or try and apprehend anyone that's trying to steal, but they also never ended that sentence with because the thief may give you AIDS, but maybe they should start doing that. I've never chased someone that stole something from the store I worked at. Like, off you go.
I never knew your cat was so cuddly. Right? She really loves these delectable squeeze-up treats. Deliciously delectable delectables. You're hilarious.
Delectables, squeeze up. Deliciously delectable delectables.
Care. It's been the heart of our mission for more than 25 years. If you need health insurance or if your coverage is changing, Fidelis Care can help. Call 1-888-FIDELIS, TTY 711, or visit fideliscare.org.
Coming in at number 9 are the cats. I will shamelessly try and include cats in every video if I can. I don't even care. I don't even care if it's relevant. Anyway, this story comes from Redditor Gave a Sky, who said they recently had a dream they were in an apartment with a few cats. That's just my dream. I mean, that's my life actually. Anyway, everything seemed pretty normal and very real until one of the cats literally up and jumped out of the balcony. The person was a bit wary, so they sat in the kitchen just to collect their thoughts. Then one of the cats just sits next to them on a different chair, except the user just can't look at the cat. It felt like looking at the sun. The cat wasn't even bright, but they just couldn't look at it. Out of the periphery of their vision, they realized the cat was morphing into something else entirely. This menacing creature with a disturbing face. It morphed into some humanoid creature, and the user couldn't see its body, but its face was pale and square and had no features whatsoever except 2 eyes. The user immediately feels like the whole world is just closing in on them, and they wake up, but the creature is still there, getting closer. Realizing they're not actually awake yet, they somehow willed their unconscious body to fall off the bed in order to actually wake up. They ended up blacking out after they fell off the bed and refused to sleep alone for 4 days. Honestly, this is very impressive that they willed themselves to wake up when they were asleep. I feel like I wouldn't even know how to do that. At number 8, we have the woman. Honestly, I feel like everyone can somehow relate to this story, and I'll tell you why after. So this person shared one of the most terrifying dreams and said they actually suffer from really bad sleep paralysis.